Oh, hey, look, Alice is here. Hey, Alice. Here, I'm here with Danny. We're just chilling, hanging out. Uh, we're just talking about how it's faith is like, or like, let's say Christianity specifically, is about an eternal climb, and how, for me, well, we weren't talking about this specifically, but the idea of baptism to me is like, it's or at least when people treat baptism like an end all be all, it's
Oh
like
yeah.
it's very detrimental to, I think, what the principle is, right?
Yeah.
Like I think baptism is like the way Jesus treated it when in the river when he was baptized is like it's a dedication to continuing to get better, not like now that I'm baptized I'm saved, not like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I follow you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there somebody with us?
Oh no, it's just me and you.
Oh, Alice. Who?
Oh,
Okay.
Alice,
Is that how you
yeah.
announce your?
Yeah, Alice.
Alice is our watchers going down the
Right.
rabbit hole.
She's that creepy character over there. That we're observing. You know,
Okay.
she's just kind of in the corner. Just
That's
don't
kind
look
of
at
a
her
cool. No,
direct.
it's kind of a cool.
Yeah,
I
don't
think
look at
that.
her directly. She'll like
Okay.
give you like a weird vibes. Like she'll like rot your stomach. It's kind of a
I'm like, really?
she's
Man, I'm
she's
so into like let's prove the taboo. Right? I'm ready. Like somebody was like, man, ghosts for real over here. I'd be like, sign me up, like, gate to hell. Like, let's see it. Yeah, like I'm ready.
Yeah.
Baptism is a complex subject. And it's not that big a deal once you like get your brain wrapped around it. Like, I mean, there's a famous scholar, Dale. His last name's Dale, D-A-L-E. Uh, but he wrote like four books on baptism, and he was considered like the world's like most renowned like Greek expert on the subject of baptism. He was really great. Uh, but so Jesus getting baptized, like there's a whole thing about that to where some scholars feel that because Jesus was considered a Samaritan from Samaria, you know, like they didn't realize that both his parents were in the lineage, the royal lineage, for crying out loud, both of them, and or one of them might have only been related to the high priesthood, but either way, you know what I mean? Like the order of the priest and the order of the king
Were
came
they aware of
together.
that?
No, like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, which were the running the religious community, like they thought Jesus was a straight Samaritan and they hated him.
Were Joseph and Mary aware of that?
Oh yeah, as far as the narrative never brings up how aware of their lineage that they were.
Just that it existed. I gotcha.
It doesn't, it doesn't.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Yeah, the writers of Matthew and Luke get. I have to check things. But anyways, like the lineages they give you in the Gospels, tie both figures. Like one lineage is Mary's, and then one lineage gives Joseph's lineage, and they both were descendants of, you know, the priesthood and or the Davidic throne, and they never ever associate the writer telling you that Jesus is in this lineage with Mary and Joseph's knowledge of that lineage. They never ever bring those together.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's never like I'm the daughter, Dave.
Okay.
Like, she never.
It's
There's
never
no
established.
indication at all.
Gotcha.
It's just they give a lineage, and
Understood.
wow, I feel like I'm in the movie theater. Fucking.
Oh, you're good.
We needed that commercial with the popcorn where it's like turn off your phones.
This episode of Rhetoric Rabbit Hole is brought to you by.
My sister, but she keeps calling back here. Let me turn.
Brought to you by Danny's sister.
Oh wow! So what? That lady that was attacking me sent me a message.
Uh-oh.
I'm just curious since I mentioned her like 5 minutes ago. Oh, yep. She's going on and on about some craziness. Okay. Well, so Jesus was a Samaritan, which is like being black in 1800 in America.
Okay.
It's like reviled, worthless life, like you're trash.
Yeah.
It was a real ethnic resentment, like for real
Right.
deep seated ethnic resentment. And So they were ignorant that Jesus went through. Jesus was completing the proselyte process. Is basically what scholars say. You had to get, you had to go, you had to get circumcised. You had to have the Corban offering at the temple, and you had to get your name. You know, which they did those parts when Jesus was born, and they document it in the Gospels. You know that he went to the temple and then he was circumcised, and that. So the only thing Jesus had left to do to proselytize, like a proselyte process, which is become a Jew,
Okay.
you know, like was get baptized. So basically, because they thought he was a Samaritan, they wouldn't let him be a rabbi. So Jesus uses the word where John's like, I can't baptize you, you got to baptize me. Jesus says, well, it's got to fulfill all righteousness. People think that that term fulfill all righteousness means honor the law of proselytism. So they'll let me teach, basically, because they wouldn't recognize him as a rabbi, otherwise believing he was a Samaritan, not knowing he was actually a pure blood Jew that was born in Bethlehem, because they just could, you know, they were just on the road passing through Bethlehem.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
So there's a whole like ethnic aspect of Jesus that a lot of people don't even understand.
Yeah, there's
like, that.
So there's like a whole, almost like political system to it.
Yeah, it's a ritualistic.
Yeah.
Political.
Yeah.
You know, where there's, you know, church and state is.
Yeah, I think political is not the right word.
Well, no, I mean, by all means, like old rights, religious rights were the government. Like the sacrificial system and Exodus with Moses, like that was their form of government, literally. Like that's how they administered the law. So, you know, we turned it into the Capitol and the Supreme Court. And,
right now,
you know,
the state
downtown judge. And
now the state is.
It's all based on primitive magic, dude. Like, you know, I mean, I want to make the argument in court, like to the Supreme Court, that them sitting as God above me, holding their judgment as above mine, is satanic and against the entirety of scriptures and completely against my religion to sit in their courtroom. like all of this is satanic. You're not God, and I'm not going to pretend like you are. You know, like that's what I think about court.
There is, for sure. There's a whole dynamic to the way law works, or like language is like. The way I think about a courtroom is like you have these two like wizards who basically like speak for you. Like you don't speak on your own behalf because you don't speak the magic tongue.
Yeah, no, like so exactly. Like the lawyer is there because he speaks 10,000 laws.
Yes.
You know, like.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm
the speaker.
I am the speaker.
1 million laws.
This is my cargo. Yeah.
No, like about like
and they have
by
like
all means,
battle.
like the best of the definition of a wizard I ever heard is a practitioner of magical and religious rites to a social spectrum, from the lowest person to the highest person across the gamut of known religions. So they were a practitioner of religious rites for anybody. You know, it's like a car salesman sells. Yeah.
That is so accurate.
Yeah. And then when I read that definition, that's like from like Cambridge scholar, you know, that's anthropologist I was reading. I gotta find the quote, but that's when I realized I was a wizard.
Yeah,
I'm a fucking wizard.
There's a book I want to let you borrow that if you're interested in, I'd be interested to see what you think about it. But that's a very in lines with the chaos concept, and I know I've brought this up a lot already.
Oh no, it's that's one of my favorite concepts. Can't bring it up too much. I just finished the book today, all about that.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's awesome because that's what I want to get into next. Is like
Hebrew scholars love chaos theory. I mean, it's vital to the scriptures. It's actually like it explains the whole theology of the Old Testament.
People get frustrated because sometimes I'll refer to it as like the most scientific form of approaching magic. And
it's the Play-Doh you make all magic out of.
Yes.
You know, like
thank you.
So I mean, it's like vital to all of it. Yeah.
It's very it's the baseline. It's the
literally
And so then you have people called there's like a subsect called Discordianism,
Mm-hmm.
and Discordists, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Their thing is like
I know some of the Bible verses they talk about already just from their name, but go ahead.
well, my
Going.
understanding is like it's specifically making your own mythos. So like you were like going out of your way not to adopt any other existing concepts.
Hmm.
You are just creating your own imaginary friends and putting faith into them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very difficult way of approaching it. What I do is
I see the Bible, like you can use the Bible to do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like all of
pick and choose scriptures.
Well, but all of the images and patterns that they're trying to convey are tools to create the mythos. So, but because it's your understanding of another mythos, then you're creating your own mythos.
Right.
See what I'm saying? It's
Everyone
just
has
the Bible's a tool to do it, but
everyone has their own Jesus.
well, you're only going to see and understand the world the way you do from
Right.
this moment right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it can't belong to anybody else. And
That's true.
like, so your mythos is inherently your responsibility to build. And whether you build it out of Sesame Street puppets or like these crazy rabbis talking about these crazy images, like you're still building your own castle to see the world from. And that's like like when I say castle to see the world from, that's ancient Hebrew, like grammar, you know, like from
That's
various stories. Like their eyes were opened, you know, like that word ayin is the word it's a funny word. But so when it says they built them a city and a tower at Babel, city is a derivative of the word ayin, and it means a place to see the world from, you know. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I feel bad, like, because we like haven't even explained like chaos and its relevance.
Oh no,
you know what I mean? Like, you know, and
I was just making sure the microphone was working. I actually had it. We were picking up on the wrong one, so that should be a lot better now.
Hopefully it worked.
It was picking up. It's just it wouldn't sound as good.
Well,
anyway.
So like, you know, the substance of the universe was chaos, you know, so it's a chaotic ocean, it's darkness, there's nothing but chaos water, you know, so imagine you're in the ocean, in the middle of the ocean, and nowhere, there's nothing, and it's just dark, there's no light, but it's water in all directions, violently pulsating, you know, like that's the essence of chaos, and it's supposed to actually be kind of a terrifying, basic fear to imagine yourself in that scenario and to not be like too cool with it, you know.
Sorry, I tried to breathe beer.
Yeah, it sucks. You'll do it more the older you get. So.
Man, I mean, I'll be 25 in April, but I know I'm not old, but I feel old.
Yeah, I feel old too.
Because, like, I basically did all of my real drinking between the ages of 18 to 21. So by the time I could drink,
yeah. You're already getting over. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Yeah. I've seen a lot of shit, man.
Yeah.
Like that's how I felt for like basically onwards, you know.
Yeah. I feel you on that.
I like to drink, but like not like I used to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely have like peaks where I'll like drink.
Yeah, I'm trying to push it out. Honestly, like a part of me just wants to like get it all the way out in my life, but I drink enough. Sometimes I drink a lot. Sometimes I don't drink at all. Sometimes I drink a little every day. I don't know. I'm back and forth.
The thing about alcohol is there's a lot better things out there you could do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot better highs you could have.
all I do is stay home. You know, like generally, and like when I'm not working, you know, and what I do when I'm stuck at home by myself, like as I study, so I got books all over the bed, you know, and I got my phone and I'm writing and reading and writing, and, you know, I like to like sip beer, like, and I'll drink like 6 beers over like 12 hours, you know, and I'll just be sitting there sipping a beer, studying away.
That's how
it's a great time. Like I love it. I have a good time.
I recently took a 2-week bartending course.
Oh,
and
fun!
Got my
good for you. You can make some money, bro.
ABC license.
Yeah.
And
I like making drinks. It's fun, and so like I don't really have. I'd make you a drink if I had anything, but I don't really have anything to make it with right now. But I really like making margaritas.
Yeah.
And like just in the day specifically, in like 4 o'clock margarita. Oh, that's like the life right there. I guess
So-
I'm like a 50-year-old lady when it comes to drinking. I guess.
Yeah.
I like mimosas too.
Yeah, I like mimosas.
Oh my fucking
you know,
God.
it's like, so I've known a few beautiful girls like in my day and like that like mimosas, you know. So it's like Sunday at noon mimosas with the babe, like, you know. So I love mimosas. There ain't no bad memories with mimosas, you know.
I like the thing about mimosas and like margaritas is it gives me the same vibe as I guess like orange juice, where it's just like it's refreshing and it doesn't feel like I'm just consuming
Totally
alcohol.
orange
It feels
juice is
like
good,
it's just it feels like nature, I guess. That's a weird thing to say.
So I bought a small bottle of tequila just to try some different liquor, you know, at home. Like, you know, I drink tequila when I'm out or whatever, margaritas and shit. But I drink Nas, and then like so I'm sitting there drinking a Nas, and I'm like, oh shit, it's gonna taste exactly like a margarita, you know. So I just like started making mixed drinks with the tequila and Nas, and it was like it's just a straight bubbly margarita right away. I was like, damn, it was good.
That's a nice sour mix substitute, you know.
It was silly, but it was good.
Hey, yeah. We like.
It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, certain liquors you can mix pretty much anything with.
But yeah, back to chaos.
Oh yeah.
You know, so you got the raging ocean and the darkness, you know, and so it's like terrifying. You know, you're going to be consumed by the abyss and fall into it. You know, your soul's going to be consumed by darkness forever. And so God says, "Let there be light." Now I can see. Oh, it was all dark. That was terrifying. Now at least I can see this scary ocean. You know, it's like, okay, so now we can see. Okay, so now land comes up under it. You know, so now I've been liberated from the teeth of the abyss, and it has a limit. There's a border now, and we've pushed chaos away from this border, you know. And then from there, you know, God fills everything with life, you know. And it basically the whole picture of creation in Genesis is about God putting chaos in order. And if God doesn't govern and restrict chaos actively, then it'll breach forth upon the order we've created and fight back and take back. So you have to constantly put chaos at bay. And this is a description of our lives. We are that darkness. We were born in darkness. We don't remember nothing before we were born. We just got here, and we're kind of chaotic because we don't know shit. We are stupid. We are that chaos.
We are that mostly dark with just a hand coming out of it, like just the very tip of it breaking out of the chaos.
So, but this idea that chaos can be put in order by creation is the foundation of magic. Like the foundation is a little deeper though, because you get into like the concept of God himself. You know, it's like, okay, so life was nothing, darkness forever, infinite void of nothing existed. You know, so it's nothing, and like God creates himself, so God's existence, so God's the source of existence. Since he manifested himself, he knows no other source of existence. So for him to give life to something else, he has to cut the substance of himself, a portion of himself, to create life with. So God's cutting himself, cut a covenant to give a portion of blood, you know, to give you a soul substance. He cuts a portion from it. Like this is it's the foundation of everything, you know. Like, and it's weird that nobody knows this, like, because I'll roast Christians. Like, I'll be like, you know, you're supposed to be into blood magic and summoning spirits, right? Like, and they like look at me, so like, you know, they get like, you know, whatever they get about it, but like, I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
Like, dude, Christianity is straight up a blood ritual that you're supposed to partake of to summon a spirit.
That's like people that don't study it and just understand it on a very base level. They understand the pleasant aspects that are talked about.
Yeah, well, you know, keep it comfortable. But you know, as long as I don't have to be uncomfortable.
Right, but not a lot of people really study the scripture and understand the contents
at all.
Which I really appreciate talking to you, because you've delved a lot deeper in it than I have, and like it's a subject. It's a subject that I really enjoy talking about.
I'll be 40 soon. So.
This is in this
Saturday.
is,
Saturday's
gonna,
my birthday. Yeah.
oh, happy birthday.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you told me that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, I'm going to bring this back around. You just
Mhm.
got to bear
Mhm.
with me for a second. But I guess I've realized I have a problem with authority, and I don't mean
Yeah, I do too.
specifically. I don't really mean specifically police, but government for sure.
Mhm.
Like
It can
I-
happen with the cops.
I pretty much
mean,
only had for like I would say like 90% of my interactions with police have been good.
good. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Except that one time. No.
except that one time.
You
know?
I'm speaking for myself. Like,
And then like
I was one for a while, technically too. So.
But like with government, and I think that's where a lot of my views on religion, like it's sort of a similar thing.
Mhm.
And I think I used to tell people that like, well, I worship Satan in the respect that he was the original anarchist, and he
Mhm.
said we can do well, not an anarchist, but he was rebellion. He was saying I can do this better. Like people should worship me instead of you. There's a better way of doing things.
Mhm.
Eat the apple, be liberated. Like, and then like, but there's also like sort of in the way we conceptualize Satan today, not in a literal biblical aspect, but the sort of canon,
The mythical Christian.
the canon
devil.
that's been created like with
Mhm.
Catholicism and that.
Yeah, they created a
devil.
mythical Satan that the Jews don't quite jive with. Just to say the stage.
Jews
simply.
don't really have a concept for Satan.
No, they do, but it's just not this
Really?
this winged horned creature in a hell. Like
Okay.
So they like the whole Satan Lord of Hell thing is a Christian mythos according to Jewish rabbis.
Okay. Let's
Satan, the Hebrew Satan's an accuser, traducing and slandering men. And I have some. I actually like. I have some interesting ideas about that, but
no. I was
I
gonna.
think I almost think your consciousness is Satan accusing you before God because you violate your conscience, when you do evil. And so your conscience becomes a separate entity before God saying, they killed me to do that evil shit. And then your conscience becomes the accuser in the courtroom of God. Like, but that's just one outlook. You can see it different ways.
It's like literally like a devil's advocate.
Yeah.
It's like the devil. Yeah.
The devil's advocate, I mean, like that's the whole idea. The advocate, he's in court traducing you,
Right.
Like saying, hey, they're evil, like before God. Like that is the core of the Jewish concept. And anybody that supplants you, plots against you, slanders you, like that's a devil, So the idea of it being more of a concept to apply to people and how they treat others, like it is stronger in the Hebrew than it is through the Christian dogma of the day. But the Christian doctrine, however, I completely think applies it as a concept to our behavior. I just think Christians lost it because they like to mythicize their evil and push it away from themselves.
That's very interesting because it was my understanding that there's only 2 mentions of the devil in the Bible, and it's the serpent in the garden, which is not the devil, and it's the accuser, which is not necessarily
the serpent in the garden.
It's Hasatan. It's the accuser.
Yeah.
It's where now. Okay, that's a very easy jump to get Satan, but
there's 2 mentions prophetically comparing 2 kings, the king of Tyre and the king of Babylon, to arguably the devil. Okay. They're more one of the passages is more complicated, but Lucifer, son of the morning, how thou art fallen from heaven, O king of Babylon.
Right.
He's talking about that. So he doesn't call the devil. He calls the king of Babylon Lucifer. So Lucifer's never applied to the creature in the garden.
Do you remember?
Lucifer's only applied to the king of Babylon.
Do you remember off the top of your head which book of the Bible that is?
Isaiah.
Yeah,
I can.
No, don't worry. It's
like it's so easy. I'm it's like 5 seconds on my phone. I'm always on my phone, like when we talk, so I can't look shit up. But I can do everything with. I got hard copies. You know what I mean?
I got a hard copy somewhere.
I got hard copies of like all the study tools that I use on my phone. Which is a lot of books. Those are the books I wanted to show you that I couldn't show you. I was going to show you how to study it, like the whole text of scripture properly, like my favorite method, anyways. Uh, but can't show you the books on the over the phone.
Okay.
We I don't know. We'll have to hang out at some point, but nonetheless, it takes like 5 seconds to look something up on my phone. I got apps. But one of the passages is in Ezekiel, and one of them's in Isaiah. Uh, one's about the king of Tyre, and one's about the king of Babylon. I could just look up Lucifer. But the one in Ezekiel, yeah, it's Isaiah chapter 14. So yeah, oh, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, cut down, which did weaken the nations, because Babylon just conquered the world. So when this was spoken, it was like the rise of the Neo-Babylonian Empire.
Okay.
And so verse 12, he calls him O Lucifer, but let me see where they. It's at the beginning, I think. Take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say unto them, how thou oppressor hast ceased, and the golden city ceased, because I'm going to tear down Babylon. The Lord hath broken the staff and the scepter of the rulers. And so that's verse 4. By the time you get to verse 12, he's calling him, O Lucifer, O shining star, because he deified himself as a god of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a star.
Isn't
like Lucifer just means shining one.
Isn't somewhere in the text Jesus also referred to as a shining one?
Yeah, no, and he's also he's referred to as the morning star, like, which is Venus. People have been out of shape about Venus and Venus worship, and I'm like, Jesus called himself Venus, right? Like, and I just look at these people like, you have no idea, like,
it's way more complex than surface level.
It's so funny, like, because we're talking about images of God, which were depictions of Baal and the storm god. Like, these were common depictions of God. So, like, the Bible's notoriously stealing gang signs, stealing your graffiti sign, what I mean? Like, and saying, hey, your graffiti sign's about my gang. Like, they do this, like, Old Testament, New Testament. Like, Jesus is like got the 7 stars in his right hand. Well, Thor had the 7 stars in his right hand. Jesus is called the God of the way. Pan was the God of the way. It's the way is the word Pan. Like, I am the Pan God. Like, I'm the God. I am the half human, half son of God that y'all worship, because they all had myths about this God. Like, when Paul walked up on Mars Hill and he's like, the unknown God ye worship, he's doing the same thing. He's like, hey, this God you worship over here, that's the real one. Let me tell you about the real one. Like, that's what they do. And
adopting it.
It is so funny because you have this terrible Catholic history. Catholic means universal. They universalized the religion, and they did a bunch of evil, fucked up shit by all means. But you got people hating on them for universalizing the religion, when the New and Old Testament both are universalizing other people's images of God to describe the real God. They're doing, like,
I think it really does the idea of creating a character around God sort of does a disservice to the concept, in my opinion, because you automatically, when you attribute any kind of characteristic to it, now you've put limitations on it. So we're not talking about something omnipotent any longer, because when you say God is good, well, you've specifically put a limitation on him.
That's a fascinating aspect of what you're bringing up there. Like, God is good. Like, yeah, he can only be good, so he can't do evil, but yet God does evil to accomplish good.
It's also just inaccurate if you look at the world. I would say,
like, God is obviously subjecting us to some fucked up shit. If he's in control, like, we're obviously being subjected to some fucked up shit, and people are like, is God good when these babies are dying of cancer and getting raped and human trafficked, people getting their faces skinned off and nuclear bombs coming off? And,
there's so many examples.
The Bible covers all of this, and it does it in different ways, and they actually protect certain, like, aspects of the idea that you brought up. The Bible's like such an in-depth tool, and
that being said, I get a lot out of the Bible, and I have a deep appreciation for it. But it's one of those things where it's like, I do not believe, and I've not. Maybe I'm ignorant on it, but I feel like there is no way a God in this reality that we live in can be both omnipotent and benevolent. He can be one or the other. He can be in control of everything, or he can be just a really good guy doing his best, but he's flawed. Like he doesn't have absolute power. I can believe in one or the other, but I can't believe in both of those things coexisting. And I haven't heard really a good argument for that.
Ooh.
Because if you are omnipotent, there is no excuse for suffering. Now I've heard the the counter argument I have heard against that is that, well, if things were too good, we'd get bored and we'd hate it. If things were perfect,
that's not true. I don't believe that for a second.
If things were perfect, humans would fuck it up and we
No. I would be like a fucking like 100th-degree black belt in Aikido. And I would have written like a dozen books and been loving every second of my life. That's nonsense. That if we lived in a paradise utopia to where all of our needs were met and we could only use our creative imaginations to figure out what the fuck to do every day, I believe a much better world would exist. And I believe the Bible makes an argument for such a case. But however, it's paradoxical. Like you had that scenario in the garden. Paradise, everything you need, and it wasn't enough. They coveted more. They wanted to be God himself, all of that's in play with the dynamic of our experience. And we're supposed to be pushing both ends of that through our perception of reality, vying one or the other, basically.
Adam and Eve were fucking assholes for not like having kids first.
They argued they ate the fruit and then they fucked and she got pregnant. And God's like,
if they would have,
he promises another seed, that was a bastard seed because they weren't married. People say all of this shit.
They could have had eternal kids, and then ate the fruit, and then had deformed, dying kids.
Yeah. That would have been better. Yeah.
It's also like,
there's so many complexities to these myths and stuff. It's like every time you bring up a myth, I'm like, man, it's like so dynamic.
I want to talk. Let's go back to Satan. I want to talk about Satan. I
wrote a paper on Lucifer. I wanted to rewrite it because I held too many traditional religious overtones, and I'm not. I gotta get those out of there.
Well, that's cool because I think Lucifer is a better definition of what I'm trying to describe. But I've just stopped using Lucifer and Satan terminology when I'm talking to most people because it has such a connotation to it.
It's crazy how it does too, because it's so unwarranted.
But when I say I have a deep appreciation for Satan, what I mean is the idea, because I don't really believe in these as literal concepts. So as literal figures, let's say, but I believe in them as concepts.
I feel Satan every day while I scrutinize my own actions.
And I think that's real in a degree that we can get into.
Yeah.
But like, the concept of Satan of being a dissenter, someone saying, just like basically like the rebel forces.
Yeah.
So like that's what I'm referring to, but I've stopped using that terminology just because it has that connotation to it, and I've adopted like Prometheus. I think is a better example.
I love it. Yeah, that's a good one
of what I'm trying to say. The light bringer.
Yeah.
He brings light to man, and that like he brings a torch to humans.
Yeah, like
and shows them fire, and then he gets exiled for it. He gets kicked out of Olympus.
Seraphim.
Yeah.
The flaming ones. Like I was going to tell you earlier, that's where they make the jump of Babylon, Lucifer, Seraphim, Shining One. They attach Lucifer to Seraphim, and then they bypass it was about the king of Babylon because they actually described a flaming angelic figure from other biblical
It parallels
passages.
Lucifer very well. Yeah, and
but it's a jump though.
It's not exactly the same thing.
They're imposing it on the text.
Sure.
But like you got to explore the relevance. You got to consider. Like
I understand. That's why I've stopped using that Lucifer as a definition of what I'm speaking of. Yeah. If so, whenever someone asks me like, "Well, are you religious? Like, what do you worship?" I have to say, if I worship anything, probably the concept of Prometheus of a divine being bringing knowledge. Even forbidden knowledge to men because he felt that we were worthy of it, and he even paid a price for it, getting exiled, kicked out of Olympus for for enlightening people,
Mhm.
giving them knowledge. So it's yeah, I would say, and
Like
it's not only
the Hebrew mythos implies a nefarious agenda to that scenario,
And a lot
that
of-
he intended to murder us
Mhm.
because he hated God and wanted to destroy his creation. And and I know that that's a familiar
Oh yeah,
myth, like but it's a frame, it's a form of it.
sure.
Like the frame you're talking about is also a frame that people hold to,
Yeah.
and it finds its place manifesting through other ancient pagan religions where they worship the snake and they worship the great mother of wisdom, giver of divine gifts and all that. And these are like some of the oldest, gods around.
Well, there's a definite argument to be made that Prometheus fucked up by bringing us fire, that Satan fucked up by convincing Eve to eat the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely that argument to be made that we've done a lot of awful shit with it.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the mindset that it is better than being in the dark about things, and that is totally I'll take one. That is I think that's totally opinion based. Like if someone says I disagree,
subjective spot on the journey,
let's see if I can do this first try.
Yeah.
Did I get it? Yes.
Mexicans would be proud. I did mine all fancy like.
Yeah, you just like
show off. Dude, I'm a redneck.
Show me up.
Yeah, no, the way you counter like bottle opening tricks is like, oh yeah, some alcoholic shit, and then they're all embarrassed. Like you're like, oh man, that's some real alcoholic shit. They're like, oh, that's right. I got caught. He doesn't think it's as cool as I thought it was cool. But anyway, yeah. Man, where were we?
Where
Oh.
Dos Equis.
Yeah. Say no to alcohol, kids. You'll lose your theological train of thought.
Dos Equis and Lucifer.
Man, it's funny because like everything we're talking about is like everything we're talking about. We're doing actually a really good job of floating through it because I want to talk about Job, and Job gets into Satan, and then Job gets into chaos because chaos breaches. Like I was talking about, like the land puts a boundary on chaos, but chaos can breach the flood. Is the chaos waters retaking the earth? Which is in the text of the Torah. Like it actually reads like that,
I got you.
Like God puts the chaos waters at bay when he created land. And then, because of the sin of man, the chaos waters were unleashed. So God subjected the Leviathan to his leash.
Mm-hmm.
He subjected the water of chaos to his powers and uses it as a weapon. And so God's depicted as the hailstorm God raining down hellfire. But it's like actually the word for the rain, hail, is the word Miriam or something like that, from the waters of chaos. It is the word for the waters of chaos. So like it goes from God battling chaos, conquering it, subduing it, and then using it as his weapon.
That's the kind of like the yin yang also.
Oh yeah. No, it's all
like ordering chaos. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to say one more thing about Prometheus and then let's get into Job. So I was talking about how, so for me, it's not just the idea of the teacher enlightening man. It's also, there has to be a flame for him to bring down.
Mm-hmm.
And there has to be someone to receive that fire.
We're running with the torch.
So we have a Holy Trinity sort of thing. You have Prometheus, you have the flame, and you have the
man
human
receiving it. Yeah, it's exactly the Trinity.
Yeah.
The God, the Father, the Spirit transferring between the two realms, and then the realm receiving it.
Right.
Like another fundamental structure of magic and relationship to God and magic coming into the realm. And
it all comes back into the same shit.
It really, I don't get to have a lot of conversations to where people can really see how these are, like so many of these concepts. It's like you got to clear out each one, one by one. You have to slowly like start to see these concepts, and then they start to become layers, and then you start to see how it's a layer of the same thing. And then once you start to see how it all fits together, it's like so simple because it's all saying the same thing. No matter, we're talking about nationalism, talking about idolatry, we're talking about greed and money, or just jealousy, and like all of them are like woven together in a way to where you can talk about all of it from any point of it, no matter where you're at in it, like literally.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the things that's magical about the Word of God, really. Like, but once you get there, like you just start to see these things, you know, like, and they've taken these concepts so far and so deep into the psyche and soul of man in his battle with chaos, you know, that it's, I don't know, it's profound.
Yeah.
But so we were talking the last podcast we did, and you know, you had talked about like your perspective on Job, and I kind of sidestepped an answer, you know, because like you had a calmer version, simpler kind of outlook on it, you know, where you were talking about how the narrative between God and Satan was unknown to Job, and how that bore on how we interpret his reaction. And how you basically thought that the futility of arguing against reality like was a prominent aspect of the story.
Yes.
You know, and how like God's maliciousness wasn't being perceived by Job, and
it's not
like,
it's a story. It's not something that occurred. It's a fiction. And
he like, yeah, and that's another aspect, you know, like whether I'm talking inside of a narrative or outside of the narrative, like there's different perspectives.
My point
you
is,
see what I'm saying?
My point is, that is my perspective.
Yeah.
And who am I? But like, that's my perspective reading it, is that this is written as a fiction, and therefore it justifies God and the accuser in that respect, because they're just plot elements. They're just characters that move the story along, kind of like the wicked stepmother. Yeah. Like, you don't have to hate them. It's a story.
Oh yeah, I love that you just said that.
Like,
okay, that's a good note.
I think you pretty much summed up exactly how I feel about it. Like, it affects his perspective on it, because as far as Job knows, he's just a dude seeing all this shit go down.
Yeah.
And it's like, he can either bitch about it, or he can like make the best of a bad situation. And I mean, that's the lesson I get out of it.
Yeah, like
it's a very human thing. It has very little to do with God, actually, in my opinion. It's more like a philosophy into the human mind, where it's like, you can,
which is funny,
complain about your situation, or you cannot. And that's really what it comes down to for me when I read that. How do you feel about that?
Well, there's a whole, like, Job's a big book, and it's got a whole world of interpretation surrounding it. I mean, like, I can't remember what's like, but scholars have done dozens and dozens of volumes on just Job, you know, interpreting Job, and it's a famous word, but Job means hated. Job means hated.
I didn't know that.
And the meaning of Job's bearing on the narrative is manifested in different ways. Like the destruction of his life itself. God unleashes chaos on his life, and it takes all of his material wealth. It takes everything but his wife away, you know. And round two, you know, he gets boils, and he's like scraping the boils with pot shirts, like trying to get the pus out, like just agony. It's like the picture of misery. He's in a pit. Yeah. He's in a pit of ash, scraping boils. Like, imagine big boils all over your skin. You're just scraping them off, it oozing the pus out in the pit of ash, just rubbing the ash in it. You know, there's been some movie depictions of misery and ashes. I think it might have worked its way into Excalibur. I need to go find a good one. But like, seeing misery and ashes in action is it's artistic almost. I mean, like a sick, miserable person, you know, covered in ash and crying and filth, and it's like wailing and grief.
The writer illustrated misery very well.
Yeah, it's a scene.
He was in hell.
Yeah, and So then his wife's like, curse God and die. That's hateful. Curse God and die. Like, you've obviously fucked up so bad that the world and the universe's God has turned on you.
Which is so childish, which is what the story's trying to teach you.
Yeah. You know, he's not going to give up his faith in God and say God did him wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like, even though he believed he was innocent, and his innocence is a theme through the whole book. And his three friends come along and question his innocence, and they're like, you think you're innocent, and God did all this to you. He killed your kids, he took everything from you, you were the best in the land, and look at you now. You must have really been doing some evil shit behind everyone's back, you know. And like, say you deserve this shit, bro, because you're fucking up not saying it. And God kind of vindicates Job against them, but they accusing him of not being innocent is hateful. You know, they're supposed to be there to comfort him in his misery of losing
That's such
everything.
a kick you while you're down, isn't it?
Yeah, like, and that's like we're getting into the meat of the point of the story.
Your house, all your cows, your family, all is dead, and you have boils all over you. You must be just a piece of shit, huh? You're just a fucking asshole.
You think you can judge somebody else?
Yeah.
You know, like, it's getting in there. And like, so God destroyed everything but Job's life, you know. So Jesus comes along, and God, like, hands him over to the people that were supposed to accept him as king, and they revile him and have him murdered by the Roman Empire, and they do evil through the whole thing to get him executed, you know. So Job is a type of Jesus, you know, and then expressing the hatred of crucifixion. Like, you know, people are like, God crucified my son, you know. Oh, God killed Jesus, he loved me so much, he killed his son. It's like, and then it's like they're not acknowledging the element of pure malicious hatred of what they did to Jesus, because they ripped all the skin off his back before they made him carry a wooden pole, you know, out of the city and nailed him to it until he suffocated to death, you know, more or less. And it was one of the cruelest tortures. Like, Rome had devised that torture to be like as cruel as possible, and they normally didn't whip you the way that they whipped Jesus before they crucified you. So he had a double anguish there. They would just whip you as a corporal punishment, rip the skin off your back. If you survived the infection, you know, you'd never be the same. You know, like, you'd be a fucking a beggar the rest of your life after they ripped the hide off your back. You know, it was pretty foul. Cat of nine tails had bone and shit woven into it, and so it'd stick, and then they'd rip the hide off, and it'd stick, and they'd rip the skin off, and it'd stick, and so it would be exposing the bones and the tendons and cartilage and shit. You know, like, it was really heinous, just the whipping. And that was supposed to be like just before that's better than we didn't kill you. You know, kind of a corporal punishment.
What is it, like 70 lashes? Or
40 minus 1.
Isn't
it's
that
40 minus 1? I can't remember
that's
the
like
story behind it. Actually, I forgot the story behind 40 minus 1, but you can look it up where it came from.
I was gonna say, isn't that one of those sort of?
It's like we gave you a mercy.
Yeah. Like we get in Hebrew with the significance of 40 days. Isn't that sort of just like?
Yeah, it's like one less. It's like one less than that.
Or?
Yeah, like one less than like the extent of God's severity.
Okay.
You know, like, I think that's in play probably, but like, I think it comes from something specific. I'd have to look it up again.
Gotcha.
But yeah, 40 minus 1's the old thing though.
Yeah.
So God's like loving Job by perfecting him, by taking his life from him, to teach him something about his innocence, that he's not innocent because he's immortal and he's not a perfect God. So you can't be, you know, perfect just as a mortal.
So Job is really like he's like an early Jesus prototype. It's a very baseline version of the same overall story.
The Son of God who he loved.
Yeah.
Job was the righteous man in the earth who did perfect judgment and took care of everyone, blessed the poor, shared his wealth. You know, this is just like the greatest guy ever. You know, like, prototype of Jesus, and his name means hated. You know, like, and then so God chaos is hateful. God letting chaos break forth upon Job is hateful, and Job's wife telling him to curse God, die is hateful, and Job's friends telling him he's not innocent and brought this on himself is hateful. So it's a theme through the entire story that's supposed to be present. You know, like, I love that his name is Job, And it means hated. I hate my fucking job. But yeah. But so that's like my whole 2 cents on the literature, Joe, which is kind of different from where you were coming from. You
I
know, and
got you.
I didn't want to get all serious the last time we were talking. It's the first time we talked, and you
No,
know,
yeah.
I like it, and I feel like
I'm the
this
last person you're
aspect.
gonna offend.
Well, you know, I just feel like
that was the first time we'd ever spoken though,
Yeah.
so it was
And
kind
it
of
can be kind of morbid,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and it, you know, we were having a fun conversation, and I didn't feel like getting all down.
Okay, that's interesting because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like, yeah, it's
so that's
it's
very
a thing.
enlightening.
Yeah, like
Um,
some people think that God resurrected Job's children. I think that's poppycock, but no, you know, I've heard people say that, like, actually brought his children back to life for him. I don't think that was really part of the narrative. The guy that said I know a preacher that said that to me one day, and he felt he got it by divine revelation, and I was just like,
there's like
yeah, there's no proving anything like that in the text at all. But
there's like there's stories in the Bible like the prophet Elijah going up to his altar for the bears. And it's sort of things where if you know anyone who reads this is going to say, well, that was unnecessary severity. These are very strange things, and it's like, well, I don't think ancient Israelites reading these stories thought of it as a literal occurrence. They understood it kind of like we have Brothers Grimm tales today. Like we have like old school nursery rhymes and fairy tales that are very morbid, and it's like they teach a little moral lesson. And it's like we just understand
that's what they were
that.
using it as. I mean, if you never knew the people, the story where that it was about, you know what I mean? Like if you heard the story of Ezekiel and it was like 200 years ago that it was supposed to happen, then all you got is a Brothers Grimm fairy tale.
Right.
Yeah, I'll be trying to make this point to people, and
here's the
and
thing.
they just don't want to hear it. It's just
Here's
like,
the
dude,
thing.
like
If
all
you
we
make
have is a
it-
piece of paper, bro. Like
If you make it a Brothers Grimm fairy tale, it's okay. Like I have no pet peeves with this as or even religion.
it's a story that's supposed to influence you. Say it's
Right.
something else because you can't prove it. Like, dude, we're like 3,000 years out on Old Testament prophets. Or 2,500 to 3,000, just depends on which one. And like ain't nobody like gonna prove nothing. Like why are you even fighting about it? Like, dude, like we have a story that's supposed to influence our minds. Like that's all we got. Like, and people need to accept that. Like it's not that scary. Like let it go.
There's probably not going to be a Dead Sea Scrolls 2.
Yeah, like, dude, oh man, like that's funny that you say that. But however, the Dead Sea Scrolls are going to be given for the next 200 years because they can't translate them fast enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they ain't translated all the Dead Sea Scrolls yet. Like they're going through them one by one, and whoever's got their hands on them right now is going through them one by one, or the teams of scholars working on them. But like they still like that's a thing that scholars wait for is new publications of more translated Dead Sea Scrolls. Like that's a common thing, and books will keep coming out as they release more of them. But there's hundreds of thousands. So I don't know. Wow. I mean, like there's an enormous amount of scrolls in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I know that they ain't even touched a bunch of them. You know, so that's like a live thing that is still going on as far as I understand it. It's pretty cool.
You know I can't remember the name of it. There's
they've cataloged most of it though, as far as what it is, you know. But as far as translating them goes, you know. Like, they keep releasing updates of Dead Sea Scrolls.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
There'll be no Dead Sea Scrolls 2. That's pretty funny. Yeah, like it like. Well, I guess so yeah. So 100 years of the Dead Sea Scrolls, more or less, right?
We already have a lot more.
No, it was like there was nothing. Like, dude, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, like was like name a great underdog. You know, it's dead. Like it's like them coming back to life. you know.
Rocky.
Yeah. Like, but yeah, it's like a great underdog coming back to life, because there were like hardly any at all ancient Hebrew manuscripts. Like the oldest Old Testament that we had was all in Greek before they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. So like Hebrew manuscripts weren't popular enough to make a Hebrew complete Old Testament till 1000 AD. You know what I mean? Like, so the Hebrew heritage of scripture was gone basically for a long time until they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they're like, see, we told you. It was an ancient Hebrew tradition. But that's basically what happened. They were able to prove that ancient Hebrew was like an authoritative original language of scripture when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they were otherwise unable to do so. So a lot of grown ass old Jewish men crying when they found them scrolls, like
As
literally
much as
weeping their
I-
eyes out, like, you know.
As much as I say, I think a lot of it is fiction. There are certain things like you're familiar with like the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Sumerian. So there's a Sumerian flood story.
Yeah. There's a
and-
lot of flood stories.
And then I'm sure you're familiar with the Book of Enoch, with the Watchers. So, there are elements that I think have some validity to them. I think there might have been a flood, and I think there might have been.
It's on the table.
I think there might have been something of some form that came down and breeded with human women.
I have a totally different take on that myth, like that bears on the literature itself rather than the myths surrounding it. But didn't want to interrupt you.
How was it?
No.
I mean,
oh man. So you got the descendants of God, right? Because God begat Adam, begat Seth, begat Enoch, begat Canaan, begat Mahalalel, begat Jared, begat.
Oh wow!
Like, you know, and then you have the sons.
I didn't realize Enoch was like that early on.
I might have put him in the wrong place. He's seventh.
He's really early on.
He's the
though.
seventh.
Wow.
He's the seventh from Adam.
Okay.
But so you skip Cain and you skip Abel.
Right.
Okay. Abel was murdered.
And
So
then you got-
Seth means replacement because he replaced Abel. He was the new
So
Abel.
the etymology goes
Yeah.
all the way back to
And Cain was the man from the Lord, so his name meant something along the lines of man from God. Or
And
something.
then with Seth, we get Seth.
Abel meant what did Abel mean? I thought it meant priest or something, but I'm wrong. It meant something. I'd have to look.
Yeah, what
it up.
about Cain?
Cain meant the man from God,
Oh,
more or less. I'll tell you the traditional definitions. Might as well, since we're doing this.
the etymology is a big part of it.
But so because Cain was a murderer, he's blotted out from the tree of life and removed from the genealogy. So and since Seth is Abel,
And then we
Seth's the replacement of
we get
Abel, so he
Canaanites.
stands in Abel. Oh yeah, that comes later.
Yeah.
But so they skip Abel, they skip Cain, and it goes Adam, Seth.
Yeah.
So God, the father of Adam, the father of Seth. Now,
Is this
when
in Luke,
Cain is,
what you're
this
talking
is all
about?
Genesis.
Genesis.
Yeah. And so it's chapter.
Because there's a chronology in Luke also. I'm thinking of.
They're way later built upon original chronologies, and it's a whole.
I was
other
just
thing.
okay. I
Yeah.
understand.
But so Cain's exiled for murdering Abel, and then you have a lineage of Cain, and it's Cain and then his children. You know, so you have the sons of God in one lineage, and then a story, and then the sons of man in another language, and
I
then
understand.
and this chapter is like 4 and 5 or something like that.
Okay.
In Genesis, and then you have the sons of God mixing with the daughters of men in the next chapter. So you got a lineage of the sons of God and the lineage of the sons of men, and those two lineages are mixing together. The sons of God married the daughters of men. It's just talking about mixing with the exile that we're seeing. And this is a format for you to see God putting a boundary on the waters of chaos. Chaos is murdering your brother. So you push chaos out, you exile, you put it the boundary between the land and the ocean, between purity and chaos. You push that chaos out. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so,
I'm following.
So when they mixed with the daughters of men inside of this righteous circle, they were allowing chaos back into their lives. And men became mighty men, men of renown, men of authority is what they call them. And they use the word Nephilim, and it means a tyrant, a giant. A giant is a tyrant, a tyrannical
Holy shit.
person that they also call a Shem, a man of authority. So a tyrannical man of authority. What were they doing? They were raping, stealing, killing, pillaging, warring, dominating each other. That's how it describes. And that's why God unleashed chaos on the earth
Wow.
all the way and let it overtake them. And when you let chaos back into your life by committing evil acts, it'll overtake you like a flood.
Damn.
And this is like really good logical reasoning on your actions being taught through mythological expressions, and it's great.
And
stuff.
that doesn't. That's sort of an Occam's razor of what I'm saying, because you don't need aliens in a context like that. That gives you a very clear, cut and dry sons of God and sons of man, and a blending, and gives you Nephilim.
These stories are practical, dude.
That
And when
gives me
you
a
see a
lot
practical
yeah.
meaning, it's like I think that's what they were going for. I think they were trying to teach us how to put our lives in order and to stop all this evil and suffering.
That definitely gives me a lot to think about. So, what do you make of the Book of Enoch and like
hyper relevant to apocalyptic literature interpretation. It's another trading card with like all the same players, you know what I mean? Like, because you got a ton of people that are respected in biblical literature and mythos in that story, you know, and many other writers in the Bible, Old and New Testaments, refer to the Book of Enoch and express similar stories, similar patterns of vision, similar creatures rising out of the sea and type
Wasn't
of
it
stuff.
biblical canon
Like,
until like 750 AD?
Depends on where you go and who you talk to.
Okay.
Like, you know, like lots of people have mixed different stories, but the fact that the Book of Enoch is actually referenced in the Bible alone gives it some cred.
I mean,
that the people that wrote the Bible
gives you a more detailed flood account, and it gives you more detailed Nephilim account, and like
I feel like the canon can fit together perfectly. Maybe I'm biased when I dissected it and put it back together. You know what I mean? But however, like the academic community utilizes every single piece of literature that refers to these things as a family because they are, and they both reflect on how one interprets. Adds interpretation.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying it's useful.
Yeah, the more language about a subject, the better. You know, they thought this about that over here. Mm-hmm. Well, this story came along a few hundred years later, which means that they had these ideas about these same things. And so it just makes the picture more clear. The Book of Enoch's great. I don't know, like I guess people really get lost with canon and divine scripture and stuff, and I feel like it's all foreign to what we got. You know,
I guess
we got what we got.
I guess at the root of what I'm asking you is how much I'm trying to establish where you and I are, like where how much of Bible canon do you think is literal?
I don't know.
Like that's the answer, right?
That's it. Yeah, no, yeah.
But I'm at like guessing on it. Obviously, no one knows, but like, do you? Let me. I guess
you know, like
you gave
like
me an excellent
like
answer on Nephilim. But do you think? You know what? Let's get out. I'm going to rephrase my question. I have a better way of saying that. Let's get out of the Bible. Do you think we are the result of some sort of supernatural intervention, whether it be God or...
I hope so. No, I don't know. I hope so.
No one knows.
Like, I think that something manifested me from nowhere. You know what I mean? My being has come into existence from a darkness in a place I know nothing of. I know that. Like and then
part of you. Okay.
Yeah, like, you know, like I can
Let's say
that.
Physically, where do you think we come from? Like our biology. Do you believe in?
Well,
no
like
one knows, but
the flow of energy and information in the form of sperm and an egg, like energy and information is flowing anyways between bodies. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like upon my conception, a lot of different energies and information came together, and it caused the energy of a sperm and an egg to also come together. So the flowing energy and information like caused the sperm and an egg to flow together, and that energy process began to organize itself into the cells that eventually gave me the ability to become aware of my existence. I mean,
Let me rephrase. I'm still not asking the right question. Where do you think we came from as human race? Do you, and again, I'm not asking you for definitive answers.
No, like I
No
don't agree with the straight like primordial ooze and then the cell swap to organisms crawling out to sea till we drop our tails and gills and like walk on land. I don't hold that to be any more provable than a creation theory either. Like had to come from somewhere. Like had to be a prototype, had to be a first, like something. You know what I mean?
So it's very easy to say when we say the word alien, all it means is foreign. So it's very easy to say something descended from the sky in some form or another and interfered with our biology.
So we could have been completely biologically created on another planet and brought here and
I think
left
so.
behind. There's a lot of people that believe that scenario.
If we get on the same page about that, the terminology of God or aliens is sort of irrelevant.
It's sort of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about interdimensional beings like that, like don't.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
claim to be
out.
Beyond Earth, anyways.
So me and you are pretty much on the same page about that. There's got to be some kind of interference of some kind. And that's where I was trying to get with the Watchers, because like in the book of Enoch,
you take it later, Watchers. You take it down to angels, and you got Gabriel and Michael in the book of Daniel coming around, but like
they're in
it's like heavily mythological. Like when you get to the book of Daniel and the concept of Michael doing battles with like other demons of nations, like it's like I don't think the word iconographic is the word, but I mean,
there's a lot of mythos,
like the Persian bear demon, like Michael's fighting with the Persian bear. Like it's like if so America's an eagle and Iran, like I'm gonna really be nasty here and say like their flag they got a snake, So if their flag they had a snake and our flag we have an eagle, then you would talk about us fighting like an eagle and a snake fighting.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like. I mean, it's as simple as that.
I definitely appreciate your literal take on, like, you're very, you have a very logical observation of it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it helps me back up, and kind of just, hey, let's just talk about what we do know before, you know, and I don't like I've really tried to tune in to where people just draw conclusions without proper evidence and try to be like, hey, we don't know this shit. Like, nobody knows. People say this end of it. We'll say that end of it, and these are like a logical response to the ideas, and that's how I try to do it.
And I want to be clear when I say stuff like that, like I obviously don't know where we come from either. No one does, but like I think everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got an idea.
Like it had to start somewhere, and it had to start with something smarter than us, Like because if somebody designed biology, cellular evolution to evolve and develop the way that it did. Like then that would be a hyperly intelligent force, like say we are the result of unleashed genetic material, like consuming itself till we look like us today. Like where would some type of biological matter organization system like have come from, like
that's
like, I mean, we're in labs trying to splice, human DNA with animal DNA and make like frog people with like, bulletproof skin and shit. And like people really are doing this shit. Like they really are.
I want to see bulletproof frogs.
Like they were talking about using the part of the DNA spectrum that a mollusk makes its like shell out of, something like that. Like and putting that like into the part of your DNA that makes your skin to like make bulletproof skin. And like as far as I mean maybe I'm crazy, but I remember reading a whole article about how like geneticists were really researching that,
Maybe that's what alien like there's some giant alien species.
That's what I'm getting at.
They're a collector. They just go around splicing their own DNA. Like the best aspects of all of this different
if we're sitting there fucking with it like that in a lab now, then where would this like the Prometheus like H.R. Geiger concept of primordial ooze, like what kind of
They just go around
biology
taking
could be
samples.
created that's consuming and altering DNA to create all the species on our planet
They got a
today?
fucking cow up there.
you know,
They got a
like-
human up there. A human couple, a cow couple.
Yeah.
They got an ark. They got an ark up there. And then
Yeah, like I expect
go
some
around
like
and
panther-headed
to different
people,
planets and
talking to me.
expand their ark.
Yeah.
And then there's like, ooh, this insect can secrete webs. It's like I'd sure love to like be Spider-Man.
Yeah. You got a pause button?
Yeah.
Like we don't have enough people to like take a bathroom break.
No, go ahead, man. You can just go take a bathroom break.
I'm like, yeah, you can talk to the crowd.
I'll talk to Alice.
Talk to Alice. I like that.
Hey, Alice. So, yeah, the Bible. It's a book. It has words in it that are really old. It's got old words. And they mean things. That's true. There are other books with words that also mean things. But a lot of people fan out. They're big fanboys of this one book, and they think it's more important and better than other books. Basically, their fandom is really extreme. There's other books with extreme fandoms as well, and sometimes they have giant fan wars over who has the better book. Entire wars are fought simping over who has the better book.
All right.
Me and Alice were just talking about how, there's the Bible's a book with a lot of important messages and information in it. And you know what? There's a lot of other books that also have a lot of valuable information in them. And there are certain books like the Bible, like the Quran, that
Like Bell the Dragon.
like Aragon.
I love
That-
throwing it out there. Bell the Dragon. It's the most uncanonical sounding book.
What is that?
It's a book of Daniel. It was part of the book of Daniel. There was a story called Bell
Is this
the
the
Dragon.
masturbation book?
No, it's a weird short story about a dragon. It's weird.
Oh.
Like, it's very short. You gotta read it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But no, it's called Bell the Dragon. It's like the most unbible
this
sounding
canonical?
book of the Bible. It was in the Catholic canon until some time ago.
Okay, gotcha.
There's
Interesting.
two stories that were cut out of Daniel that were part of Daniel. The other one's like Susanna, I believe. I believe that's the name of it. I haven't read Susanna yet. I need to read that. But I read Bell the Dragon and it was mild. Yeah, well, yeah, I didn't find anything I really
It
needed
was
out
like
of
mild hot
it.
sauce.
It has a reference to an action that Darius the Mede, who doesn't exist, did in the book of Daniel that we have. And instead of calling him Darius the Mede, they call him Cyrus. And it gives credit to Darius the Mede is Cyrus the Great, which makes interpreting who Darius the Mede is like a much simpler. Most answers point to it being Cyrus. Like I've read all the arguments, and so Bell the Dragon had that,
Okay.
and that was what I took from it. And I don't even remember how it read actually.
Well, I was just thinking about how
I'd have to just glance at it, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember. But,
I would just have to look at the Bell the Dragon.
yeah,
Is
it's
that is it?
Yeah.
So I was just thinking
Pete
about
the Dragon, Pete,
how
Pete's Magic. That's what it reminds me of.
the so like I read trying to think of a fantasy series, not Game of Thrones, not Harry Potter, not Lord of the Rings. I've read like fantasy series that have like really touched me, or like movies you watch as a kid that like
Mhm.
they're like Lion King.
Mhm.
Lion King's a perfect example.
The new one's dope.
I haven't seen
The
it.
movie's dope. Yeah, the little recreation movie.
But-
They did a good job.
What I'm getting at is this is a
Sorry.
thing that is like you can get something deep out of this. It's in a story. Something like that can be very profound and mean something to people. It can be helpful
Mhm.
to society. Now,
Yeah.
now there isn't a bunch of people. Maybe there are. Maybe I'm just arrogant. I mean, ignorant. But like, maybe that
They go hand in hand.
arrogant. Yeah, that's true. That was a Freudian slip. So they like but there aren't like people running around telling people like enforcing Lion Kingism.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm
No,
saying?
no, absolutely. And I feel
Do you
like
get, you get exactly what
no,
I
if
mean,
people
right?
took it like
Yeah.
that, then maybe they wouldn't be killing each other over it.
Right.
You know, like these are our gang signs over here. That's I look at like religions as like gang signs. That's a weird thing, but I do. And so it's like these are my gang signs over here, and they make me smart like this. And look how we floss. You know, like that's like the extent. That should be the extent of it. Like, hey, we're doing religion like this over here, and look how smart and
It's
great
like a
it is.
sports team.
Yeah, like it is like a sport. It's like a sponsorship. It's like a brand. I consider them all brands as far as denominations go. Like if you have a religion,
When you
with
go back to like
your
tribalists,
angle-
like that's
Mhm.
exactly what it was. Is they're just all repping their
there's been anthropologists
like
and
Rome.
sociologists
They all
that
had city
discuss
gods.
tribalism in the corporate structure. That's like a
Mhm.
thing.
We've just it's sort of a cliche like American gods hit the nail on the head, but we've all just like we've traded our gods for different gods.
Mhm.
Where people think like atheists
Mhm.
are they worship their phone, they
Mhm.
worship television, they just aren't aware of it.
Yeah,
Not just atheists,
No,
but
no,
you know what I'm saying.
I have a
worships
whole
something.
nother rabbit hole we could talk about when it comes to images and its relationship to what you just said about phones and stuff. But yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to get off the one we're talking about. What you give your attention to is your God, and you'll become like
Yes.
your God.
Yes.
And that's a theme. Like one of my favorite scholars is G.K. Bill. He's one of the few modern New Testament scholars that's actually worth a flying fuck. Like he's because he has evangelical conservative passion, but he's an academic scholar, true and true, one of the best. So he's one of the people kind of trying to ignore the rift between right and left and just show you good theology. You know,
Okay.
he's this great guy, but he wrote a book called We Become What We Worship, because it's a theme through scripture that you become like the idols you serve, you know. And so ultimately you worship what you give your attention to, and then you'll become like them, you know. And there's righteous aspects of this development to where you're supposed to give your attention to your wife and worship her like she's God, like, but that involves like serving with a sense of duty and a role. There's roles that male and female are supposed to play in a family, Judeo-Christian family unit.
Right. You're
They-
getting back
they-
to like traditional aspects.
Yeah.
of
So you give your wife
culture.
your attention, you love her, you move into
Yeah.
her being, and you become like her, and she becomes like you, and you become one flesh, a new person together.
Right.
You know,
Egg the
like-
yolk, egg together.
Like, so there's a righteous version that we're supposed to partake of, this concept of becoming what we worship, and we're supposed to give God our attention and become like him and think like he thinks through the images they give us in scripture, you know. And then there's the unrighteous version of becoming like a bunch of nasty shit. You look at it, if you looked at chaos, you looked at destruction, you looked at envy, lust, jealousy, murder, greed, wrath, then you become like those things, you become like chaos, and your life will be destroyed because order will be lost. You know, part of the promise of chaos being unleashed upon the innocent, even though they gave their attention to God and their families and the community and being uplifting, and then God unleashes chaos on them anyways, is that the righteous part of them can't be killed by the chaos, you know. And so it's purification in a sense.
There's like a cleansing fire. It's like a purifying.
Think it not strange the fiery trial it is to try you.
Yeah.
So some strange thing happened to you, like, you know, like Jesus getting tortured to death by the Jews in Rome betrayed and all that, like
Yeah.
think it not strange, the fire that comes to you. It's like, man, God loved his son more than anybody, and look at what he did to him. If people don't really realize like what they're fucking with. God's like, this is how I love my son. And that brings this other aspect to it, that sometimes love comes in the form of punishment. And sometimes a greater purpose, like proving that evil should be restricted forever, you know? That's what I think is going on here, and that we have to suffer and be subjected to this chaos and this evil to justify God's ultimate forceful removal of it from the fabric of reality, which is where we're headed. And that concepts of freedom of will and sovereignty of God, and like upholding justice and righteousness over like different standards of judgment, like are all in play, and we're all participating in the ultimate outcome of this cosmic eternal
Game.
battle with sin and evil,
Right.
like that it's supposed
And
to have
that's
an
why-
end at some point.
In the end of the day,
Mhm.
I think a lot of people who have done psychedelics can relate to this, but like you get kind of this impression that in the end of the day, everything will be okay and nothing really matters, because
Mhm.
everything devolves back into this is a game that God is playing to make a decision.
Mhm.
He's trying to arrive at a decision, and it's a battle of order and chaos,
Mhm.
or some people conceptualize it as good and evil.
Mhm.
It's not that black and white, but
Yeah, it's definitely not that black and white.
Right.
Like, and then from God's perspective, it's a much different thing than from our perspective. Like we're in time, subjective, internal experience only. And He's all time,
yeah.
like past, present, future together. And
Most of the people I've talked to that like high doses of mushrooms, or someone who's done like DMT will relate an experience where it's like they, and not across the board, but there's a lot of similarity here where it's like they have a feeling of oneness, where it's like we were all one entity that split itself into many things to better understand itself.
Mhm.
So like me and you are the same guy. We're just trying to
Yeah,
understand.
no, like
ourselves.
that is present in theology, completely. Well, like, so ultimately, like, we're all supposed to be the house of God, and God's supposed to live through us. Like, as evil restricts like the healthy flow of energy and information, you repress and isolate God in you, and abuse Him and abuse yourself, because Him is you, like, and you become unhealthy and sick and mentally ill, like as a consequence of chaos not being put in order in your life. You become insane. And we're talking about stuff that's overpowering everybody's life right now. It's
Yeah.
like so crazy.
Yeah.
But
No, yeah.
but God, like, you are gods, you're supposed to be gods. And then there's this element of we're supposed to be gods that submit to the one God as a better God than we are, and give our power of God over to Him. Like, it's so fundamental to Scripture. It's like even hard to like know how to dive into it. But it's a core concept, and it manifests in all the other religions and all the other tales about all the other gods. Like, there's a God amongst a bunch of gods, and He becomes the best God, and all the other gods to give them His power and want Him to rule with their authority. Like, and man, it's like woven through the whole tapestry of the Old Testament and the New Testament. And like when Jesus is like, doesn't it even say in your own scriptures, you shall be gods, and these are all the words for judge, and so it's like it's ultimately a picture for externalizing judgment, like to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, becomes the law in all of our hearts, to where we give up our authority to this greater ideal that rules all of us, So we're empowering a message to rule us above us. And that's what the goal of all of this is when mankind matures enough to let judgment be outside of us and perfect and above us, and then we all submit to this judgment, you know. And I don't think it has to manifest in a court system. I think when somebody tries to rape somebody, you fucking split their skull open and it's over, you know. The community should be there to stop crime, and like that was actually completely implied in the Old Testament law when you look at their laws about rape and violence and assault and theft and murder. Like, you know, it's like if people are around to hear the screaming, then they should all handle it. If nobody's around to hear the screaming, then, you know, we have to treat it differently because there was no one to save somebody, you know. So if you get raped and people can hear you screaming, you know, like it would be different than if you got raped and no one could hear you screaming.
In the sense that someone should have come and saved you. So
Yeah,
now there's no
absolutely. That
recompense?
somebody should have come and saved you.
Wait, so
Like,
now because no one did though.
well, that's outside of the idea. Like the idea is that you couldn't have stopped him and no one can prove otherwise because you were alone in the woods, you know, versus if like you should have screamed if you were close enough to the street. And if you didn't scream and we didn't catch you and we didn't save you, it's because you were being licentious and wanting to get fucked,
okay.
basically.
Okay.
Like, so you would
That was the
guilt.
law
You
at
would
that
guilt
time.
yourself. What's
Okay.
the word? Incriminate. You would incriminate yourself by not screaming when
I
you were
understand.
close enough to the public to be saved. Like but it's more complex than this in a way, you know, because it's like we're talking about scenario based stuff. But like the idea of the community being responsible for what happens to each other
That's
is
very
the prominent force
Right.
of these laws.
Right.
That like and the entire Jewish law speaks in this way about like whether people are around or weren't, you know. And it's because these are community laws to govern the community, and we were supposed to handle that shit.
That's part of the law also, is you should have stepped in and if you heard that.
Yeah, like definitely. And I mean, like I'm the first motherfucker to stop somebody's head open that's raping somebody in front of me. I'll kill you. I'll kill you dead. If I see you hurting an old lady, a woman, a child, I will fucking kill you.
That's
like,
part. I
and
think
I won't think twice about it. I'll feel good about it.
That's pretty. I don't want to speak for like every culture, but it's at least a very American
Prominent.
thing.
It's prominent. Like
Yeah.
you get into like code of honor.
Most people feel that
societies.
way, where it's like they see injustice in front of them,
I lose it.
Yeah.
I learned that I was going to get myself killed, and then I found
that's the
real
chaos.
martial artists
That's
that
the
could
chaos
train me
within
to
you.
master
Temper
the
it.
chaos. Yeah,
Temper
like
it.
no, like so you go to Hapkido class and you practice chaos. You practice somebody trying to hit you with the bat, trying to stab you with the knife,
Yeah.
trying to shoot you with the gun, and you
What do you
master
do?
chaos.
With
And,
chaos.
yeah, and then when chaos tries to breach forth upon you, you put it right back in its place.
Right.
You know, it's funny because these are core magical principles and the foundations of like the development of martial arts, and the very theological Middle Eastern battle against chaos that was the original plight of the gods, like did spread into these mystic martial art religions, you know, and they knew that they were putting chaos in order, you know, like it's just another vein of how these magical thoughts traveled.
And it just, it travels and it bleeds out into every culture, every society.
And then
That's
the concept of putting chaos in order is relevant to every one of us every day. We'll be covered in dirt if we don't, you know.
That's why, like,
we start to look like mud people and shit.
I don't feel this way when I talk to you, but I have a hard time talking to people about magic, because usually when I'm speaking on magic, I'm speaking of social and mental manipulation, like you laid out, like the ability to influence your surroundings.
Yeah.
And well, when I break it down like that, it's like, well, yeah, we agree about that. How is that magic? And it's like, well, what we're talking about, where we might disagree, is scale. How much you can influence your surroundings, how much you can influence others.
Like they'll push these concepts into more fantastical realms with like sympathetic magic, I believe is the term. There's sympathetic, and then what's the other one? There's two terms. There's sympathetic. I thought it was empathetic, but I think I'm wrong.
Sympathetic is where a state is shared between
imitative. It's sympathetic and imitative. Okay, so when you get into imitative magic, it's where they're pushing these magical thoughts of energy transfer almost into a fantasy realm. I'll give you an example. If a lady was in childbirth and she was having a hard time delivering the baby, like another lady would come up next to her with a rock, and she would give birth
wow.
to the rock, and
Oh.
she would hold a rock on her belly and act like she was giving birth to it and push the rock down. Like, and,
Have you seen Midsommar?
that's one of my favorite movies. Yeah.
Imitative magic, right there, bro.
But they brought something else out in there that a part of imitative magic, where they all grieve together.
That's what I'm talking
and when
about.
they fuck together,
That's what I'm talking about.
like, and they're all having an
Yeah.
orgasm together, even though it's just the two fucking.
That's
like
when you brought that up. That's
yeah,
immediately
yeah,
what I thought.
I was thinking about it as I was talking about it. It was in my mind because that's one of my, like, dude, whoever made that movie is beautiful, and
it was
yeah.
Ali Aster.
Yeah.
He made
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Have you seen Hereditary?
I love it. God, I love it. Like, he made one of the best, like, secret cult, like, movies. Like, it's up there with, like, The Ninth Gate, and there's some other favorite ones of mine.
Is that a Johnny Depp?
Yeah,
I've seen that
yeah.
one.
That's up there with,
I've seen that,
like,
yeah.
mystery, a cult to where they hide everything that's going on the whole film. Yeah. Like, there's a few out there that are just like Rosemary's Baby's obviously one of the best, and Damon, the first one was pretty good. Like, there's a whole genre of, like, real, like, there's a difference between haunted and supernatural movies, and then there's an occult genre of written by people that understand occultism, and they really weave together some mysterious shit. Like, and I don't know, it's a special kind of film.
So I'm not a big Stephen King fan, but The Shining is my favorite horror movie. And I credit that more to Stanley Kubrick than, because I've also read The Shining.
That I have, like, you're bringing up something that I still kind of think about from time to time. The involvement of Stanley Kubrick with Stephen King in that film, and, like,
Stanley Kubrick was definitely on some very archaic, very alchemical concepts.
I think he had to
throughout his films.
I think he had to seek Stephen King out and, like, want to make his film because it was about mind control. It was about a totally different aspect of mind control too, but
because,
like,
The Shining's the real thing.
Yeah,
and he had The Shining. Stanley Kubrick probably had The Shining with that book where he clicked. It's kind of like
I figured he like had the pressure to like let me make your film. Like, I haven't looked into it, but that's the vibe.
One thing I think Stephen King got wrong is when he describes The Shining, it's like, well, some people are more sensitive to it than others. I think more accurately, there is a spectrum of frequency, and certain things are on frequency with each other. So, like, what I'm saying is, if I might see a house, I might see an object, I might read a book, I might hear a song, I might meet a person, and something about it resonates with me. It clicks. And it can be an object, it can be like inanimate, or it can be a person or an animal. And something about that, there is something within that resonance that is, you can feel it.
Well, they've proven we have electromagnetic fields, and that, like, my electromagnetic field can communicate with your electromagnetic field, and that certain internal signals can be transferred, and they don't know the extent of that. Like, I think, like, maybe all information can be transferred this way, like it, like, which would explain a whole lot of synchronicity, like you bringing up Heredity, and Midsummer, like, while I'm thinking about it with thought. I mean, granted, like, our ideas are,
well, that's a great example, because I was just thinking about, like, like the first time I met you, like it was really clicked. I felt like we were on the same wavelength, like we're on the same, like, you and I, there's a thing over here, and you and I can both see it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I look at things a lot different. Like energy's flowing between us, and, like, I'm the effect of energy and information flowing in and out of me my whole life. Like, and as energy flows into me, it transforms itself in me, and then flows out of me. A little different. Like, but these energies that move in and out of you are bigger than you, and they've been flowing through people, like, since the dawn of time, and they're connected. And these like hate in me will move into hate in you, and if I do something hateful to you, you'll be hateful to me.
That gets passed on,
and then it gets passed on, and that hate got to me somewhere beforehand, and it's been flowing through people, and it's the same hateful energy.
And you can
Like,
pass good vibes along the same way.
All virtues work this way.
Yeah.
And these virtues, I believe, are bigger than us, and their energies flowing through
That's
the world.
true,
and
man.
you either
That's
cultivate them and then produce more of them, or they become, uncultivated and die out. Like, and so we're participating in something bigger than us through all of these energies that overpower our lives. Like, and joy will overpower your life, and hate will overpower your life, and envy will overpower. Any of these virtues will overpower your life.
To tie the shining back in,
we got to get back to
ahead.
baptism too. Overpower, overwhelm is what baptism means. I meant to tell you some more about baptism, but like, let's get back to the shining. And
yeah, I was just gonna say,
we'll circle on some baptism, which is actually
I was about to full circle anyway.
Too.
So the shining, like, so an excellent example of something that has a strong resonance for a lot of people is the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It's so let's get specific. Jesus has a strong resonance for a lot of people, that archetype.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason for that is Jesus, before you've ever read a Bible, you kind of already know Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
He's inside of you. He's part of you.
I would argue,
and I don't mean that in a mythical sense. What I mean
No, I followed you. The spirit of Jesus is inherent to a child. And I would actually argue that people present Jesus to children in a way that actually chokes out that original spirit of Jesus.
What I mean by that is, like, the people that wrote it down, I wouldn't call it necessarily, I wouldn't call it divinely inspired, but it's more like this is a concept that you feel already in you, because since there have been people, there's been this archetype of someone who was selfless and a martyr. They crop up from time to time throughout history, even before Jesus came along. You have this idea of someone that is a helper and a teacher and just like a prophet. And so all of these people throughout the century, they come to form this collective idea of it's an archetype. That's what an archetype is. So these archetypes are almost evolutionary. We understand them in our bones. And so when you feel it, that's what that resonance is you're recognizing a concept you weren't aware that you already knew, but you did know it. Does that make sense? It's a very kind of...
No. Okay, so Hapkido, like, is my base, like, martial arts style, I suppose. And they designed a system around the way that you react and flinch. You know what I mean? Like, when somebody throws something at your face or your gut, you flinch a certain way. It's natural. Like, you'll respond to violence naturally with certain types of movements. And so they take these, like, biological, almost chaotic type movements, and they hone them to, like, they put a form and a technique in it, and so they're taking something natural and tuning it,
Wow, that is
to be effective.
Transmutation.
Yeah, like, so you take a concept like understanding uplifting virtues as a child, like the Bible is supposed to be taking those basic instincts, like you're saying, and honing them and harnessing them to operate naturally.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's supposed to be a healthy development, just the same, like that, like you're saying, like, it's a base natural instinct that people understand.
Yeah.
And they do, because they know it's comforting. They understand hot, cold, they understand hungry, tit and mouth. You know what I mean? Like, and so these ideas of pleasure, pain, comfort, joy, like, are instilled naturally, like, just by your own survival. And so, like, using the Bible in a way to hone the natural innocence and goodness that's already there is what we're supposed to be doing.
Archetypes are like the story of us. It's like the stories we've carried down, the stories that made an impact on our ancestors, and they're just getting coded in us.
It means first type. Archetype, first type.
Yeah.
Arch was the word that meant the first. I kind of wonder about that. Anyways, an arch like probably got associated with the first and it starts occurred. You know, I don't know. I'd have to look at that. I've looked at it like a long time, like 20 years ago. I remember studying.
That's a neat concept.
Yeah.
That's
That's New Testament Greek vocabulary, arc and arch and whatnot. Going back to a first.
And Jesus is a very direct and simple archetype, but there's so many of them as well. There's the archetype of a father, of a mother, of the devil.
You were bringing up whether like, you know, like did you bring up like whether the Gospels were true or not? You know, Jesus is the archetype. Is that what you said?
We've definitely talked about that.
Like was like once you see how like much Jesus was designed out of the Old Testament, which is not something you can just tell somebody, you know, it takes a lot of study to really associate the things he did and the patterns he did them in, and then see how they're in the Old Testament. But once you see that picture, dude, I mean,
they've actually
you talk about designing literature, like I got a hard time with it. Like it's like so obviously designed to be a extension of these rabbinic trends of divinity through literature that, I mean,
yeah,
like, I mean, that's one of the reasons I tell people the historicity doesn't matter. It's because if you study the Bible to a point, you're going to realize like how designed this stuff is, like, and then when you get into the actual physical history of how we got it, you know, like there's evidence that these tales come from rabbis that knew how to number the spelling of words, like to form patterns, and then knew how to write stories and patterns that depicted structures they were describing in the stories to depict like your physiological, subjective, psychological experience. You know what I mean? Like they were lining all of these patterns up like on purpose. Like, I mean, how do you design it to that extent and it not be fictitious? Like, you know,
of course.
Like, and then people want to demoralize it. Like you're saying, it's not honest all of a sudden. And
oh, right, yeah, like you're somehow less Christian for saying
yeah, and I feel so far like against that, like on the other end of that spectrum, because
you're not
missing,
Christian for analyzing it.
Exactly, like you're not
a Christian for
that's uncomfortable for not
you're
dealing
avoiding
with
it.
And then the thing is that they're avoiding the effect and intention and accomplishment that the scripture's seeking, and that's where it's just like if you could just get over yourself and all of the things that trap you into your perspective long enough to actually get what these guys wanted you to get. Like, it's the best thing ever. Like, these guys were trying to convey the best thing ever, and it's amazing.
Remove the rafter from your own eye before you remove the straw from your brother's eye.
Yeah, and until they pull that beam out that's blinding them, they'll never see shit. Like,
they're just gonna fuck you up trying to help you.
And the thing is like, dude, that Bible, you know, you got a book this big, you know, it's like, dude, you got no excuse. Like, that book is designed to get your brain going on this trail. Like, the whole thing, no matter where you enter it, it's trying to get you to this destination of vision, of perception, you know.
And that's like,
when you get there, there's no denying it, and no one can ever get you out of there. Like, and it's just like, oh, I wish these people knew what they were really fucking with, because they don't.
A lot of my like, I don't have a lot of practicing friends. A lot of my friends, a lot of my circle just isn't a big fan of it. But you know, it's something that like
it's dying. It's dying.
It's cool talking to you though, because it's like, even though I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and
I wanted to wear a button-up shirt and a tie, like for our next interview. I really did.
We could both do it.
Yeah, I was like, it's gonna be ironic. So yeah, no, it would.
We'll get like some watchtowers and some like, oh my god, that'd be so funny.
You know, and then we should have some future episodes where we fake like we knocked on somebody's door and have a Rhetoric rabbit hole. Like,
I might just like have like a panic trigger and like have to go back to the car. like no, I can't do this, guys.
Sorry. I thought this would be funny. I'm triggered. That's funny. Yeah, no, I was gonna ask you first though. Be like, hey man, would it be too fucked up?
No, that's
because I think it'd be funny. Like,
that's the perfect amount of fucked up. Oh my god, it's hilarious.
Yeah. Holy shit.
I was gonna say, oh, but no, like I have a lot of friends that came out of being a Jehovah's Witness also, and
Yeah.
like
I find
I
that
have a lot of
interesting.
people that didn't grow up with religion at all, and they just think it's kind of like square, like Christianity's. But like, and it is because of the way it's presented.
You know,
Because of how
like,
it's
don't call me
presented.
that over there. Like, you know, if you
Yeah.
want to take everything that was supposed to be and then call me that and eliminate that over
Yeah.
there, like, okay, that'll work. But however, you could just not call me a
Right.
Christian and I'm fine. And like,
But the
you know,
reality is that
like,
you and
that I
I
am a Christian. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's the reality of it, is that I've been infused with
The
the
only
mind
reason-
of Christ through studying his book too much, you know. Like,
the only
this is
reason
just
I
good.
wouldn't call myself a Christian is because I'm being honest. I'm not following his footsteps.
Yeah.
Like if I'm being honest with you, I'm not living a lifestyle
No,
that's
yeah. I make that argument all
what
the
I
time.
should
Are
be.
you Christ-like? You know,
not really.
it's like, yeah, like,
Not really.
and I'm not either.
But I respect him.
my-
I respect Christians,
Yeah.
like real Christians.
My hunger for the word, you
Yeah.
know, like I can relate to Jesus, you know, and I feel like that part of me is very Christian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but when it comes to being a sinner, you know, I know what I am.
Well, it's
and I'm
an
fucked
effort,
up,
right?
and I got a lot of
A
problems.
Christian is someone who's trying. It's someone who's putting forth an effort.
A Christian is someone who puts the word into their mind enough to start to be like him. And when I say be like, I mean like think like him, which means see his judgment, which is putting that apple back on the tree and being
Yes,
like,
but
his judgment will work.
no one
and I'll
is-
give up my judgment.
Everyone fails though, right? Like no one is Christ.
Well, how can you know his judgment? So you read his word to, you know, it sticks, but it never sticks.
That's the thing.
Until you're dead.
You know when you failed,
Yeah.
and no one's perfect at it. So it's one of those things where it's like
I went into the Christian cult as a 6-7-year-old because I was a sinner. You know what I mean?
uh-huh.
I was like, I already know that I fucked this up as a 6-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, so I should be a Christian to try to get saved from all of this sin. You know, like,
That's a good way. Hey,
like,
what I was
straight
gonna,
up.
what I was gonna get at is like, but you know, is as much bullshit as there is surrounding organized religion,
Mhm.
there's a lot of good, valuable information to be gleaned from both the Bible, from the Quran, from the Book of the Dead, from
They found a new one.
another Book of
They
the Dead.
found a new Book of the Dead, dude. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
it's just made some big news.
Like
yeah,
a
I should
different-
have shared it. Not just a new copy, an ancient Egyptian copy.
Like a different iteration, like a
I don't know about the details of the text.
or like
No,
Book of
they-
the Dead 2.
like no, like they just found another copy.
Okay,
I guess,
that's
but like an original,
Kind of like when they
ancient
found that
you
copy
know.
of Job,
Yeah.
that like, and they were debating over whether it was older than the Torah.
Yeah. That's but yeah, the oldest books of
that's
Job
a
are
different
Greek.
thing.
Yeah, the oldest books of Job are Greek, and then
Didn't
like,
they
they weren't
find?
very complete.
Wasn't that a Dead Sea Scroll thing? Did they find?
they
like,
found commentaries of of Job
okay.
in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but no.
They didn't find a copy
Oh wait,
of it.
I might be getting confused. Hold on a second. I'd have to look. I think they found. I'm getting confused with Daniel. They found commentaries on Daniel, but not copies of Daniel itself. Job. I don't know what they got out of the
I
Dead
am
Sea
not
Scrolls
too
of Job.
informed
I'd
about
have
this,
to look.
but I was under the impression that they had found a copy of Job that predated the Torah.
Yeah, no, that's a lie.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as I understand, that's a lie.
Okay.
A lie on 2 counts. The oldest actual physical word of God is from like around the 6th century. And it's the word that says to put the word in the door, you know. So they put the word that says to put the word in the door. Like they found, it's called the mezuzah. But they found a mezuzah with a verse from Exodus in the Torah. On it from 586 BC. The oldest known copy of Job is 200 BC-ish, and it was Greek. I know that. And I don't know that it was a complete book of Job or not. I need to look. And and like I said, textual criticism, like don't quote me, like look it up. But yeah.
Job was Old Testament though.
Yeah, it says the Torah. But it's in Greek. No, like that's what I'm saying.
Greek,
like the
though?
oldest, that's what I was trying to say earlier. Like
So hold on, like there's a more recent
the
Hebrew version?
The oldest version of the Torah is in Greek, bro. Like,
what? Of the Torah? Really?
The oldest manuscripts they had until they unearthed the Dead Sea Scrolls were Greek copies
until
of the Old Testament.
until they
The
unleashed the Dead Sea
Septuagint,
Scrolls.
the Septuagint, the LXX is what it's the Septuagint, and the Theodotian Greek text of the Old Testament were the oldest Old Testaments on the planet for a minute.
So
Like when they
now-
found the Dead Sea Scrolls, now they have proof that there were ancient Hebrew
Okay.
manuscripts.
All right.
And until
all right,
then,
all right.
and this was in the 1920s
This is
or
very
40s,
recent,
right? You know,
very
so
recent.
until then, like the original Old Testament was in.
What the fuck?
They hide it. They don't want people to know.
What the fuck?
They-
I didn't know that.
They don't want people to know. Yeah, I was trying to. I took a lot of notes before we talked, trying to put that shit in order real quick.
Holy shit.
Like, and hunting down all the different dates for the text we have. And I tried to present it the last time we talked. I did okay.
That was a good conversation.
Yeah. Like, but yeah, like,
Wow.
yeah. Like, yeah, people have no idea the lies and the bullshit they've been fed. Like this whole authoritative word of God thing that they talk about, inspired word of God, like, dude, it's total poppycock bullshit. Like, are we gonna go with the oldest manuscripts? We're gonna go with the ones we think are the best. Yeah. Like, and basically
Right.
the Masoretic text that they collected from a bunch of sparse manuscripts here and there, like, and then the Masoretes like published a Hebrew canon, you know, a Old Testament manuscript that's more or less like the whole Old Testament that we have today. I think like exactly that. And so they established a Hebrew Old Testament one, and they said in 1080, it was like 1099 AD, that this was like, you know, the accepted, handed down, correct Hebrew canon of Scripture. But you got 1,000, 2,000 years or more, or like, I mean, right in there, like from a 199 AD to, you know, what, like 2000 BC ish, you know,
Fuck.
like
Damn.
Abraham 2000 BC ish, I think, something like that.
I'm sure a lot of people had speculated, even before that, were speculating that the Greek translations were based on something older.
Yeah, you know, the Jews had traveled to Grecian locations and used Greek to write
so
down.
they knew there was probably
like,
an existing, or maybe not an existing, but there might have been.
No, yeah, like there's, and then when they found the mezuzah in the door in you know, near Jerusalem, it was like, here's proof that in 6th century Hebrew language of Scripture exists, you know. And so even though it's just one sentence, you know, it's still a sentence from the Torah in Hebrew out of the house outside of Jerusalem in Israel.
So,
you know,
but like ancient Bibles, like the King James edition, would have been translated entirely off of a Greek text.
No, so King James is 16, you know, 1611, whatever. So they were using the Masoretic text that is the Hebrew text that was created in 1099 AD. So you got 600 years later, like they come out with like a whole Old Testament Hebrew canon. By the time the King James is translating, they're using that Masoretic text, as far as I understand it, to translate the English. So, but the scholars that knew that text and translated that text were aware of these Greek manuscripts and how they were translated and were involved with them. All the translators that got involved in King James translation, it was like half conservatives and half, you know, like, you know, evangelicals on the one and liberals on the other, you know. Like they wanted to kill each other. They would, the most renowned Greek scholar of the day heard they were doing it and came to go help. And they turned him the fuck away. They said, we don't want you here. It's bad enough in here already. We don't need you in here.
Damn.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can get it. There's a book. It's something like The Word of God in Evil Hands. Like that's not how, it's like a catchphrase. It's pretty cool. But yeah, it's a book about how fucked up the King James translators didn't get along when they did it, you know, basically.
Damn.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I've talked to somebody that read it. It sounded like a good book. I got so many books I want to read.
It's such a rabbit hole. Like
Sinner, no, it's like I think it's a play on sinners in the hand of an angry God, you know, but it's like worded like to where it's like the word, you know, like flip.
yeah,
God, I wish I could remember the name of that book. Anyways, yeah.
it's like
dude, like yeah, like dude, people don't realize, like, you know, so when the New Testament was written, say it was written in 100 years after Jesus, whatever, it don't matter. You know what I mean? Like 200 BC, you got a bunch of copies of the Greek Old Testament that survived. So 100, you know, you get to 180, it's 300 years, you know, of known we had texts in this language. The New Testament writers are quoting the Greek Septuagints.
okay.
Like, so you can trace the vernacular, the vocabulary from the New Testament to the Old Testament in Greek much easier. Like because they're
Wow.
quoting
Yeah.
Greek versions of the Old Testament
It just
straight
makes
up.
sense.
Like,
right. Yeah.
and so you step out of that, you know, if you step out of the historical narrative, like Hebrew's old and ancient forever, you know, like forget that for a second, you know, like the guys that are teaching a New Testament built on the Old Testament are building it upon the Old Testament in Greek. And we know
Right.
they had the Old Testament in Greek at that point when they wrote the New Testament. As a matter of fact, we don't know a lot about how much Hebrew they had, you know, so.
It's, I guess the like skepticism about it would be like it's been stepped on so many times. Like it's been
yeah. Well, scholars in the academic world like don't feel bad at all, like about it. Like, you know, like they just like they're not afraid. Like they just document it. Like, hey, like they said it this way over here, but a little bit prior to that they said it this way and it changed in this way. And then they'll actually look for social indications of the change to see if there was a purpose, you know, like, like they do the whole Old Testament like that. They're looking at like how they changed the name of enemies, what times they changed the name of enemies, like were they changing the name of enemies to fit their political agenda down the road? Like, and yeah, there's evidence they were doing that, you know. They look at changes in the dates of things and the methods of reckoning time that they used, you know, and so you take a book of Enoch and it gives an account of an event that's recorded in the regular Old Testament, you know, but it gives different dates and then they compare those. Like they just embrace the evidence of the variations and then try to catalog them and show whether they were from a good intention or a bad intention. So like people aren't afraid to look at the fact that people have changed the word of God over and over and over again. And like other people like resent the idea. So there's so much evidence that they've done it. It's stupid. And people are ignorant for thinking it hadn't happened. But these Christians, well, it's the inspired word of God. It's perfect and going and nothing bad happened to it. And like, oh, I'm sorry, you live in a fantasy world. Like, and you need to deal with the actual nature of the text we have and why we even know about any of this shit.
Meanwhile, their pastor is able to shape it in the way he wants.
Yeah, they're mostly trying to get your wives not to cheat on you and you not to fucking embezzle money at work. And, you know.
That's better.
Yeah, you want to talk about surface problems, you want to talk about the core of all problems, you know, and that's all they're doing. Like they ain't talking about the core of all problems. It's because you don't love God enough, you know, because you're not spiritual enough. It's because you're too lazy, you know. It's like none of that. It's all symptom based. Like you got to go to the root, you know, which is you think you're better than somebody else, you think you're more important than somebody else, you think you're really worth more than you actually are. You know?
Yeah.
Like that's the core of the problem. But get to the root. Like, but nobody knows how to read the Bible. Like I'm convinced, like nobody knows how to read the Bible. You got all these Christians and all these groups and all these studies and all these things, and none of them are learning shit about how to actually live a spiritual life. And I don't know what to think about it. I mean, I just feel
that's one good thing I do have to say about like growing up as a witness is they do encourage a lot of Bible study. The only issue with that is they have a lot of literature that they call Bible aids, sort of. It's like well, and that can be helpful. Like you know, like a reference Bible. It's like what does this mean? And you can look at like etymology and like things like that. But then you get into things where it's like they view it in a very specific scope, and there is an
Mhm.
ideology, there like a
Mhm.
doctrine.
Yeah.
So it's basically telling you what the Bible says,
Yeah.
rather than like
Mhm.
it's like that's not really what, like, I don't vibe with that.
The proof of the pudding is when they sit down with me and try to have a conversation with me,
Yeah,
and then like they're not gonna like it, and they're going to
right.
feel threatened, and it's gonna go bad. Like, and it's just because I'm a free thinking, open minded person that
And the
knows
thing
more
about-
about it than they do. Then like it's like, come
The
on.
thing about witnesses, like, like they're going out and knocking on people's doors because they think they're trying to, that like you're gonna die, and like they're trying to like save your eternal life.
Yeah.
So it's a very noble thing to do.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna knock on someone's door and
Mhm.
tell them about what God is, you need to be willing to have a conversation where you listen to the other side of that.
Mhm.
But
See, they've
you're
already
basic-
got it. They chose the destination, and thus like will refute the path.
They're telling you what it is. They're not
Yeah.
having a conversation with you.
Exactly.
And the thing is, they're conditioned and taught to operate that way.
Oh yeah.
They're told not to humor other ideas and concepts. That's the world. That's the devil.
Yeah.
It's trying to lead you away.
Yeah.
So they're told to go and spread the good word of God. The catch-22 is they're not allowed to listen to you.
Yeah.
They can just, and it's sad because they're good people with good intentions that are manipulated.
And they've been given a format to operate on that
Right.
is inconducive to mental health.
Like my
Relational
parents and my
health.
sister are still witnesses, and like I know a lot, like them included. They're some of the best people I've ever met. Like they're very virtuous and like
Yeah.
care about others. It's very
I've met a lot of great followers.
yeah. It's just I think I'm pissed off at the organization, like what.
Yeah, right back to what I was
Right.
saying earlier about the leader in the church versus the academic and the business structures controlling them.
And let's bring this full circle back to state. I have a harder time being upset at a police officer just following orders than I do at the fucking politicians telling him what to do, like writing the laws that make him like.
Yeah, like I mean, like when
Like,
a
fuck
cop
those
when a cop
guys.
gets mad at me about weed, I want to be like, who made you the moral police, bro? Like
Well,
I thought
the
we weren't.
politicians did.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like we're supposed to have a separate church and state,
Uh-huh.
and we don't. Like you're enforcing your moral ideas on me. Like I'm
But
an
at the
adult.
end of the day, you're
I'm a
talking.
sentient person. I can decide what's best for me.
At the end of the day, you're talking to a dog. You should be talking to the dog's owner
Exactly.
about how he conditioned his dog.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
No,
saying?
it's just like, dude, come on, man. Think for yourself, bro. Like you're persecuting me for being me, not because I'm breaking a law or violating anybody.
Right.
But they don't even like nobody's waking up to nothing. Everybody's letting their mind get hijacked and fucking brainwashed and taken control of. And everybody that is smart enough to realize what's going on will get in the game and manipulate and control to get power. And everybody that's too weak is going to get taken advantage of and be a cog in the system and be a good dog.
That's exactly right.
That's all that's going on everywhere you go in all corporate structures. And it's like, it's time for humanity to grow the fuck up. It's time to start paying attention, being conscious, sentient, using your intelligence to interpret
Personal
the world.
responsibility and like accountability.
That's arguably the new age of Jesus Christ.
That's the crux of Jesus.
Yeah, like that's the new age of Jesus Christ, to where we all recognize the truth and assent to its supremacy as Lord above us. When love becomes the law of the land above humanity, and they worship that as God, and how we relate to each other as God. We worship a mode of relationship as God. Like that's gotta sound so crazy, but like I'm talking about like, that's the only thing that's going to break humanity out of this age of misery and suffering and war and fucking structural violence. Like we done cured world hunger, but we can't let go of our infrastructure enough to actually like let the people eat it. Like literally, like we cured world hunger. They're like, well, GMO. And we'll fix world hunger. And
there's
they
more
did.
money in keeping them starving, though.
But there's more money in structural violence than there is in a healthy people that aren't starving.
Yep.
And like fuck this world.
Well, I think a conversation like this is
It's the future.
not like
we're
delusions.
like 150 years out, like talk about the.
I don't
where
mean
we're
like
going.
delusions of grandeur, like us specifically, but I think conversations like this are very important.
Yeah.
Like this is how we fix things: is
Mhm.
dialogue and communication.
It
And
is.
that's, in our small way, that's
It'll get
we're
there.
contributing to that right now.
Jesus
Like,
preached that this love energy, like I'm talking about these virtuous energies moving through mankind for years. Like Jesus seemed to think that he clarified the reception of the energy of uplifting love, to the point that it would eventually overtake these other energies and drive them out. And, like society is supposed to see this as a goal and a journey and an objective that we're all supposed to engage in. And the more people pick up this fight, it'll eventually overtake the world to where it rules us instead of us ruling us, this ideal above us. And that's the idea of a God above us. And I think Jehovah as God was supposed to impress these ideals upon man.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's designed in the Torah to do this.
And then there's the archetype of the dissenter, the one that says no.
Yep.
That says, fuck you, what do you know?
Yeah. And like, it'll either overtake the world or it won't, like that's one fulfillment of the apocalypse that's really positive.
Yeah.
Like it could go that way. We could all be burned to ash and then it would equally.
I think I've told you this before, but like when I came out of all of that, I was like pretty much an atheist, like, but I was really fascinated in a very superficial way.
Mm-hmm.
I was very fascinated with the occult
Mm-hmm.
in a very like Tim Burton, like Hot Topic kind of like bullshit kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
But like I wanted to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see ghosts or spirits or something.
I'm down.
And I sought it out.
Yeah.
I went looking for that, but I didn't believe.
Yeah.
And I think I've told you this before, but like long story short, I'll spare Alice because I've said this story many times on the show. But like long story short, I bought that board I showed you. And me and another person got very humbled about what is and isn't possible. And I have a very like deeper impression like of what's happening in the universe now. So it's funny because, like I told you, my mom is still actively a Jehovah's Witness. And I have a great relationship with my parents, which most people in my position do not.
I was gonna say which I get all of that. Yeah.
At all. But my parents just happen to be really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, my mom is super fucking cool because I will tell her anything. I have a very just like I just talk to my mom. So I've told her about like doing DMT, and I've talked to her about communicating with spirits.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, there's sort of this stigma like don't do drugs, kids, and there's also like you go and watch a horror movie and it's like someone gets possessed and they kill their entire fucking family, and it's like there's all this propaganda against both of these things. Yeah. And those two go hand in hand, by the way, like psychedelic drugs and spirit, operating with spirits, because it is a mind thing. You're forming a mental link with something else. And that other thing might be an aspect of you, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. When you get to that level, it kind of doesn't matter what it is exactly. Yeah. But like I just talked to her about that kind of stuff, and we were specifically talking about DMT, and she was, I was saying, this might be the burning bush. This might be the acacia, like an acacia bush might have been what Moses was. That would explain a fucking lot. And, I was just like, so, when I have these experiences, it's similar to like a prophetic dream almost. And she, is just very understanding about what I was saying. And she was like, I just think you need to be careful and she used the analogy, and this is something I think about a lot. She used the analogy of like a father having a storage shed, and on the top shelf, there's a blowtorch and it's got a lock on it. Well, there's a lock on it for a reason. So if you're a kid and you unlock, you do that thing you're not supposed to, the thing the state and the religion are telling you not to do, if you unlock that and you do it, it's a blowtorch. You can do a lot of good with that.
Mhm.
You can do a lot of bad with that. It
Yeah.
can be destructive also.
Mhm.
So I think
As everything.
now it's like you can see some like, okay, we were talking about DMT and how like there's a correlation with people realizing that we're all the same entity, right?
Yeah.
And that is a very uncomfortable thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it's like we have become alive to forget that.
Yeah.
We've invented the idea of an ego so we don't have to remember that.
Mhm.
And so remembering that is very painful. It's like one of the most painful things you can experience because it's like
when I came out of that vision when I was driving, you know, and as I began to like come back to my own identity and like as an individual, but not me necessarily, like it was just like a sense of self. And then when I saw bodies next to me and realized there was other than the self, like that was terrifying in that moment of purity.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
And
That
speaking
was
for
like-
myself personally, I don't want to be a part of a collective consciousness. I want to be me forever. I don't want to return to like some hive mind. I just like being me.
Try to try to revolve that idea around the turnstile a few more times because like I try to accept the fact that I'll be absorbed with all other consciousness together in a higher consciousness as God, lose myself, but like the purpose of me like will have been fulfilled and I'll have become something beyond that. And if that scenario is the case, like I think the Bible tries to express God being interested in creating an individual to join him, and so if God's as miraculous has created the universe and then created all of us before we were ever born and had us in mind, like then he could certainly preserve us through that. And that's going to be like a divine gift at the end of life if we do get to stay us or not,
what's fucked up?
Like,
if me saying that like, oh, I don't, it kind of doesn't like what I want is kind of irrelevant.
Well, it's going to happen to you. No,
be.
that's why I'm saying take it around the turnstile.
It doesn't really matter
because you're not going to get away from it either way.
Yeah.
So it's best to just meditate on embracing that experience. I mean, that's what the Buddhist shit's about.
Think about this too, though.
Yeah.
I might think that's not what I want, but again, I'm God.
Yeah.
So I guess it is what I want.
Well, you're already it, and just
Yeah.
you're learning to reconnect, basically. And I think
if
part of that is how God's proven He exists. I think that like part of that whole experience is giving God life somehow.
Yeah.
Like I think He gets something back from it.
Right. Like
if I'm infinite light and I can't experience nothing, then this would be the place to have experience.
That's like,
and then you start to change the way you view death and suffering, to where God's getting a ride out of it. Like,
I was going to say, it's kind of a slippery slope where it's like, you can be like in absolute torment. And it's like, well, just remember, you put yourself here. It's like, well, that doesn't really help.
God's like
that just makes
God's
it
like,
worse.
there's nothing but blackness. Like getting my face peeled off is actually cooler than infinite darkness.
It's like, that doesn't fucking help in the situation.
Yeah, if you were talking about like the integrity of God's moral ethic, like by creating us and subjecting us to suffering, but it's like, dude,
he's just a masochist.
Like the pot can't say shit to the potter, bro. Like, like
that's very true.
You could sit there and argue all day about being a pot, but at the end of the day, like we didn't exist, and so whatever caused us to exist has the right to do whatever it wants with us, and we can't argue that it wasn't right or wrong.
He has the right through power. Meaning that it doesn't fucking matter what you want. There's a reality.
Yeah, like in reality's happening to you, and you were manifested against your will. Reality's happening to you against your will. No matter how much you influence it with your will, it's still happening outside of your will.
God might be wrong on a moral level, but it doesn't fucking matter.
By our moral standard, and that's what I'm saying. Like he's not. Like whatever had the power to manifest all life,
you can't
operate on our moral standard though. His moral standard is the only real one, because your moral standard is dust, and it's
not gonna do shit for you.
No, you're gonna be dust, bro. Like your moral standard is dust. Yeah. And when you stop running your fucking mouth because you got put down in the grave, what you gonna say or do? You're power. Like people are powerless over this force of the idea of God. Like whether they like it or not, like you didn't create yourself, so you got no hopes of creating yourself beyond your death. And so if something manifested you, that like it could manifest you again. We got evidence. We were manifested already. It could happen again. So like this hope in a living God like is substantial to even existing at all. Like existence is a miracle. Every inch of the universe is a fucking miracle because it's something in a void of nothing. Like
it's important to value how rare and special it is to be here and to be alive.
yeah, and even in the midst of the greatest suffering, it's more than you deserve because it wasn't nothing. Like you were nothing. Like so, say it ain't so. Like, and then like that base scenario alone is supposed to make you a champion of light and righteousness. You know, like it should inspire all of that. Like, wow, I was darkness, now I'm light, now I'm something.
Instead of bitching about it, why don't we just make it better?
Yeah, like engage it all the way.
And
intentional living.
Like if things are bad, instead of it comes back to Job. Instead of bitching and moaning at God about how bad things are, why don't you get off your feet and rebuild it? Like just build something out of it.
Yeah, and then in the extent of Job's plight, you know, it's just a suffering in a pit of ashes kind of story. You know, it's like a week around a campfire of Job suffering.
I think
so. It's not like it focuses on how he rebuilds his life per se, but it's
he's not gonna.
But that would be relevant if, like, say it was a story like that,
right?
But yeah, you know,
you're right. I'm sorry, not exactly like Job, but
like what you're saying is relevant though about like doing the right thing and putting your life back together. It's just in Job's particular instance, it was a monologue expressing his path to that state. You know, like, but nonetheless, like
I think we're still really early on in our evolution.
Oh yeah, no, we're in like one of the worst dark ages.
I think we're going to evolve into a different sort of thing.
We're going to shake off all of this structural evil and destruction and chaos. Like we're going to humanity will break it off the yoke of its back or perish forever.
People like
we're headed to that.
Stephen Hawking and other people have estimated that we have like 100 years to live and things like that. And I think that's kind of a pessimistic view because it's kind of saying that people have reached their epitome of like what they can be.
Yeah,
but I maybe this is faith, but I think I have faith that people will progress and get better as at large.
Like the plane of possibility, like is a mathematical reality to where like events have the potential to arise at any moment, you know, like a meteor could just hit us, like that's in the plane of possibility.
Sure.
You know, so like as you develop the understanding of the plane of possibility and society begins to unite in what could potentially arise, you know, that it creates a higher plateau for events to arise. You know, it's like when we bring the standard up from living in the dirt to having houses and cleaning them, you know, like we've changed the plane of possibility to arise from that level of a clean house.
It's like talking to like your grandparents. It's like, oh, you're from a different world than I am. Especially like when I talk to my grandparents.
Absolutely like that.
Yeah.
Like the plane of possibility develops as we collectively view the world in a journey.
Like
when I say journey, I mean like
the last time I saw
an American dream.
Yeah,
you know, or like a shogun, you know, samurai. Like, you know, like they view the journey like very differently. But you know, like because you have a social standard of behavior, it creates a different plateau for what arises out of the plane of possibility.
One of the last times I've seen my granddad recently, he had like long hair and a nose ring, and he was like what is that like with young people like you know, like when someone my age sees that, it's like it scares them.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. And it's like, well, first of all, I didn't say any of this, but I was that like I thought about that a lot. I'm like, first of all, I don't care, which says a lot about the state of the world.
Yeah.
That like I don't care if I'm scary to an old person.
Yeah. No, but I think young people in general are scary to old people. They learn to stay away from young people because they're stupid and dangerous.
Second of all, you're afraid of it because it's not conformist.
Yeah.
That's what the fear is it's something
that would have like
defies
when they were a teenager, they got the brakes beat off of them and fucking never seen their friends again for like, you know, 15 years, you know, like, you know,
yeah,
like
like something like tattoos is like I think I know more people with tattoos than I do without tattoos at this point. It's like that's a very common thing. Like
I'm a
it's not-
virgin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't
Well, that's
have
cool.
tattoos.
That's-
I've wanted, but
I mean,
I'm too profound with
that's
symbols to
more of
agree to
a
one.
like that's more of an odd man out than getting a tattoo. You know,
I kind of want to get one,
Lewis-
but I just can't
Lewis,
decide.
you met a minute ago. He doesn't have any tattoos either. Or my other roommate.
That's funny.
I've only got one.
Yeah.
I need to get it touched up actually.
I like that.
Um,
That's a good symbol. That's an old one.
thanks. Yeah, it's a triskelion. Yeah.
So the precession of the equinox has moved the Little Dipper from a circumpolar rotation. The Little Dipper used to be on a circumpolar rotation, and they feel like that one comes from the Little Dipper being more in the shape of 3 because it was shorter.
Oh
Like,
wow.
And then as it shifted, the Big Dipper became more prominently perfectly circumpolar like it is
shit.
now, and then the swastika was a further development of that.
Of that sim. Oh wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
there's a lot of great research on that. Zelia Natal is one of the best. She was like a 1900s theologian, female. They didn't take her seriously because she was a girl, but she was so dedicated. Her credentials were like a paragraph. She was dope. And
Nice.
she told all the motherfuckers that start talking, she's like, the astronomers and the Chinese experts on Chinese, cult mythology, and the Egyptologists and the Canaanite mythologists. She's like, hey, all these things are the same. And all these people were worshiping the stars, and they had a relationship between their blood covenant sacrificial systems and star worship. And she's like, and y'all need to start fucking working together and doing your jobs. And they're like,
damn.
100 years later, they're like, this bitch knew what she was talking about.
knew.
And they started bringing her work back.
It's all the same shit, man.
Yeah, a bunch of great people brought that to the modern age.
Well, Danny, do you want to talk about anything else before we close out?
No, I think we covered a lot of
We've
good
been
stuff, man.
all
No,
over
we
the
actually
map.
talked about some good stuff.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, like we still got a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, I can go on for a long time.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll just have to save that for next time.
Yeah. This is good though. I'm glad we got to do this. I'm glad I got to come meet you in person.
Yeah, man, it's been really
Definitely
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, good talk. We will see you guys next week or whenever. Yeah. See ya.
There you go.